Entertainment begins with a journey. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 401 Sheep Folding Festival. It's time to go back. An hour and a half is not enough for a photographer like Yukai. It takes a long time to find a shooting location, and he has to climb the hillside to take the photos himself. Standing high is not only about seeing far, but also about taking beautiful photos. But Jack used his eyes to intimidate Yukai from time to time to prevent Yukai from doing dangerous things like climbing the glacier. This glacier is not like a gentle snow-capped mountain. There are very few footholds and it is very steep. Seeing the time, Jack called on the passengers in his car to assemble. It will take another 8 hours to go back, and it will probably be 11 or 12 o'clock when we get back to Reykjavik. Fortunately, this is Iceland, and tour groups from other countries don't dare to do this. Yukai was the last one to get on the bus, and before getting on the bus, he was still looking at the sea reluctantly. Jack patted Yukai's shoulder. "I'm so sad to see you go. You can come here more often in the future. Why don't you try being a tour guide? You speak English and Icelandic very well, and you know Chinese. It would be a shame if you weren't a tour guide. I think it would be a shame if I weren't a translator." After Yukai got into the car, the driver took his feet off the steering wheel, yawned, and prepared to drive back. He'd been driving this route for almost 10 years and could get back to Reykjavik with his eyes closed. The other tourists were tired by then and closed their eyes to rest. Jack stood at the front of the bus, holding onto the seat to prevent the shaking, and gently recounted stories of Iceland in his radio-accented voice. This accent was so soothing that Yukai sometimes even played videos of it to sleep. The bus didn't arrive in Reykjavik until 11:30. As they were about to get off, Jack stopped Yukai and said, "You seem to like Icelandic horses." A herd of wild-looking Icelandic horses had just appeared on the road. The sight instantly perked Yukai's sleepy nerves. He stared out the window until the horses disappeared. Jack, who hadn't slept, observed all of this. "Well, these horses are so graceful. I love the way they walk. I think it would be so cool to ride one day and take a picture, or even go for a run. Are you free tomorrow? I'll take you horseback riding." "That's great. I have time," Yukai said happily. Traveling alone is always about time. You can freely plan whatever you want each day until the end of the trip. That's the benefit of wandering alone in a foreign land. You can be open to adventures at any time. It was late, so there was no more conversation. Everyone went back to bed. Back home, they turned the heat up, took off their down jackets, and grabbed some ice cream from the fridge. Yes, Iceland has ice cream and ice cream too. Ice cream is even a must-have snack in Iceland, both summer and winter. The reason is simple, just like the fans in Iceland. Yukai had always assumed that places like Iceland didn't have fans, but many restaurants still have them. Don't ask why, the heat is just too high. It's hot. After finishing his ice cream, Yukai went to sleep. He had a great day and was quite comfortable, but the drive was far too long, 15 hours round trip, and in reality, he only got off the bus to play for 2 hours. It was tiring, but worth it. Regarding geography and scenery, Yukai had always thought China had it all, but the Glacier Lagoon and the Diamond Beach, there really wasn't a single place in China with views like these. A dreamless night. The next day, Yukai was woken by a phone call. It was almost 10 o'clock. It was Jack, calling to say he'd take Yukai horseback riding today. He was already at the church. Another church. Reykjavik residents are extremely fond of this meeting place, and most appointments are held here. He grabbed a fresh sandwich from the refrigerator and went out. It must have rained again last night. While the ground wasn't muddy, it was very humid, giving the tiles a dark tint. As they reached the church, a car honked its horn. Jack's face appeared in the window and called out to Yukai, "Over here." Getting in the car, Yukai munched on a sandwich and said, "Have you had breakfast yet?" "Oh my god, it's already 10 o'clock and you haven't had breakfast yet." "Wait. Were you still asleep when I called you?" "Yes, I wake up around this time every day." "Oh. Then you've really missed a lot. The sunrise in Reykjavik is beautiful, too, especially now. After a while, when the polar night comes, you'll miss the sunrises now." "Haha, then let the polar night arrive sooner." "I can't wait," Yukai said with a laugh. I almost forgot you were new to Iceland. Yes, I loved the polar day and night for the first 2 years I was here, but life goes on as usual here. You'll get used to it soon. Jack said as he drove out of Reykjavik, heading inland. What might seem like awe-inspiring wonders to outsiders is just everyday Icelandic commonplace. While they might be delighted to see the beautiful aurora borealis, their emotions are completely different from those of tourists. Where are we going? Yikai, still clueless, got into the car of a stranger he hadn't met until yesterday. But now, fear was completely gone. He was simply curious about where Jack would take him. Do you know about the sheep rounding festival? A little bit. I heard from a friend before. He said that in September or October, farmers bring their sheep back home from their grazing, so you can buy the freshest and best lamb in October. Yes, I'll take you to my house. They've been looking for their sheep and horses these days. Speaking of the sheep rounding festival, Yikai was curious about something. The festival originated from farmers driving their sheep and horses out of their homes during the summer, leaving them to wander. Then, when the temperatures dropped in September and October, they drove them back home, fearing the stray sheep would freeze to death. The sheep rounding festival is a celebration of bringing the furry children back home. But the question arises, how do they find their furry companions out there? Iceland is huge, right? After a few months of free range, they'd have wandered off to who knows where. What if they were hiding somewhere and you can't find them? Besides, Iceland isn't a big country, but it's not small either. How can you find your own herd among so many people raising sheep and horses? Yikai thought this was too much work. It would be better to keep them at home. Aren't you working? Yikai asked. I had a week off after work yesterday, so I can come back and help out. I've also brought a Chinese like you as a visitor. They should be very happy. My son loves Chinese culture. It's an honor. China welcomes you. Yikai sincerely hopes that foreigners will travel to China, but they shouldn't just visit the attractions. Instead, they should do the same as Yikai did now, and truly experience Chinese culture. Of course, foreign garbage is not allowed into the country. A big part of the reason why Yikai likes Europe and dislikes the United States is because there are too many foreign garbage in the United States. Any homeless person from abroad can become a foreign teacher in China and change hundreds of girlfriends in a year. It's outrageous. Chapter 402 Icelandic Father and Son. Finding a job in Iceland is easy. They don't prioritize academic qualifications. As long as you have previous experience, you can find one, and the benefits are pretty good. Jack's tour guide job only requires 1 day a week. 1 day on, 6 days off, and no physical labor required. Where else can you find a tour guide job like that? Yikai had never heard of such an outrageous company. Is this the Nordic welfare system? Love it. The trip was to Ulfljótsvör, 45 kilometers from Reykjavik, where Jack lived with his wife and her family. Jack said, my father-in-law was a dealer. He got tired of city life and moved to this small town, where he's living the kind of life he's always envied. Yikai smiled and asked, since I came to Iceland, I hear you all complain about being tired of city life. Is it so easy to get bored? People in my family are dying to move to a big city. Isn't life the same everywhere? Jack asked. It's more convenient in the city, Yikai said. There's a huge difference between towns and cities in China these days. Most first-tier cities have reached the standards of developed countries, but in many places, even education is mediocre. Yikai had been to small towns before. I've also been to Hope Primary School. The educational environment and teaching quality there are very poor, while those in the city are much better. If two children with the same IQ, EQ, and personality were to attend a school in the city and one in a small town, their final results would likely be polar opposites. One would get into a prestigious university, while the other might not even get into college. Otherwise, why would parents buy housing in school districts these days? They're even willing to go to hell for it? It's because of their children's educational resources that parents understand this issue more deeply than anyone else. Jack shrugged, not quite understanding. Yikai didn't say much. The 45 kilometers were quickly over, and Jack parked the car by the roadside. After getting off, he pointed to a small path and said, go up from here and you'll reach the valley. The sheep are herded here now. Just then, a man on a tricycle came down the road, herding a flock of sheep. He clearly knew Jack and greeted him with a smile. Jack, you're back? Remember to come to the club tonight. Jack replied, no problem. They went up the mountain. This is a volcanic valley. It's foreseeable that this valley must have been a massive volcano hundreds or thousands of years ago, erupting to create its present appearance. The hollow in the center is home to numerous sheep and horses, but no cattle. Icelanders don't raise cattle. Yukai doesn't know whether they dislike eating them or if cattle simply can't survive in such an environment. Regardless, beef is extremely expensive in Iceland. Icelandic farmers mostly raise sheep and horses, the two most common meats consumed in Iceland. Sheep hold a high status in Iceland. They are a relatively pure Nordic breed, hardy and well adapted to the harsh natural conditions. Therefore, Icelanders in ancient times also grazed these sheep in the wild during the winter. Icelandic sheep provided their ancestors with meat and milk for winter sustenance, and their wool was also used to make clothing to protect against the cold. It can be said that sheep were one of the key factors in Iceland's ability to survive the harsh natural environment of the past. The sheep rounding festival, also centuries old, is one of Iceland's oldest traditions, a unique way for farmers to celebrate the harvest. Yukai wondered if it was similar to the autumn harvest celebrations of Chinese farmers. After all, the land here isn't suitable for farming, and their only source of food is meat, so celebrating a good harvest is only natural. Sheep and people were everywhere. Old people, adults, children. Old sheep, mature sheep, lambs. From above, they were so densely packed that a trypophobic wouldn't even give them a second glance. But with just a quick glance, Yukai guessed there were 1,000 or 2,000 sheep. There were also horses. Jack said to Yukai, "You can play around here. I'm going to go look for our sheep. It'll probably take over an hour. I'll call you when I'm done." "Okay, go do your thing." Yukai also wanted to take a look. An hour wasn't enough. In the crowd, some children playfully sat astride the sheep's backs, playing and helping their parents identify their own sheep. It turned out that each farmer had marked their sheep's ears, so they could simply use the markings to find them. But Yukai was still puzzled. Could some of these sheep be hiding? He wanted to ask Jack, but Jack was already far away, weaving through the crowd. So Yukai stopped a man with his son, who had just found his sheep and was heading home. "Hello, everyone. Can I ask you a question?" the boy asked. "What's your question?" his father replied. "Anything I can help you with? Please feel free to ask." "How were the sheep found here? Were all the sheep in the country gathered here, or were only the sheep from this nearby farm herded here?" "The whole country." "Haha, of course not." The man laughed. "If all the sheep in the country were put in one place, there would be too many. There are only these sheep in this valley, all from nearby farms. If we can't find them, we just search a few more times. We started looking for the sheep a week ago. Every family is looking. Once we find them, we herd them here, whether they're alone or in a group. In a week, we'll find them even if they were hiding deep." "I understand. So they won't run far?" "Not far. They stay in one area. Animals don't stray far from home unless they need to migrate. So we just search this valley." The man's name is Luotetan. He has another job, but in order to enjoy the fun of nature, he runs a small farm with his children. They have about 80 sheep. Luotetan was very proud. He touched his child's head and said, "My son is only 9 years old, but he takes care of these sheep most of the time." "Wow, that's really amazing. What can an 8-year-old do?" Yukai felt that many 8-year-old children were waving sticks and shouting, "I am the Monkey King," right? No, children nowadays don't like the Monkey King. In short, 8 years old is still childish. It is an age to play, and it is rare to do such a big thing. "Can I take a picture of you?" Yukai asked. Luotetan answered cheerfully, "Of course." So, with a large flock of sheep and shepherds in the background, Yukai captured the smiling faces of the two grandfathers. Luotetan was wearing an Icelandic-style sweater and a woolen hat, touching his child's head and smiling with his big white teeth. His child was a little shy, wearing a dark blue down jacket. When his father touched his head, he lowered his head slightly, but his eyes looked at Yukai curiously. Without realizing it, it has been more than 400 chapters. Is everyone still there? Come and check in. Chapter 403, Washing Away the Vanity. Since it's relatively close to Reykjavik, Yukai spotted some tourists. He soaked up the festive atmosphere, but soon Jack found his own sheep and, while herding them, said to Yukai, "Let's go. By the way, do you want to ride a horse?" "Can you?" "Of course, but the horses have been out in the wild all summer and are almost wild. They need to be tamed again." While Iceland may seem peaceful and tranquil these days, with its residents living happily and welcomingly, Iceland is one of the 5 Nordic countries. Who were the people of the 5 Nordic countries? The Vikings. Their origins imbued them with an innate boldness and a thirst for conquest, which is why they favored the wild nature of horses. Jack, having been in Iceland for many years, had a knack for taming semi-wild domestic horses, but he wondered if Yerkai could match his skills. Yerkai argued for himself, that's fine. He knew how to train and ride horses, but he hadn't tried it yet. But there's always a first time for everything, and after all, these horses were semi-domesticated, so they'd be easier to tame than completely wild ones. Jack scratched his messy hair. For safety's sake, he decided to go horseback riding with Yerkai after he got home. I'm going to drive the sheep back to the farm first. We're not far from here. Want to come along? I need to drive the sheep, and you can help me. Giving an okay sign, Yerkai said, no problem. Iceland's highways are particularly famous for self-drive tours. Many tourists who come to Iceland rent a car and travel around the island, enjoying the diverse scenery along the way. But these small roads aren't part of the circular route, so there are far fewer tourist cars. How many people are there in Iceland? A small town probably has only a few hundred or 1,000 people. When there aren't tourists, these towns are as quiet as paradise, with almost no traffic. He only saw one car coming the other way. The rest of the time, Jack was driving a large flock of sheep and horses along the road, while Yerkai followed in the car far behind. For a moment, he felt as if he were witnessing Icelanders from centuries past. Every year before winter, they would herd their sheep into this valley, carefully identifying their own, and then herd them back to the farm. Jack's figure echoed those shepherds of centuries past. If he weren't driving, Yerkai would have found a good angle to capture this scene. Perhaps it would be useful for his travelogue later. He was planning another travelogue. He loved this place so much, and a brief travelogue on Weibo couldn't fully capture his feelings, so he decided to write a travelogue about Iceland. Jack suddenly turned around, walked over to the car, and said to Yerkai, we're getting out into nature. Look over here. Have you ever seen anything like this in China? Yerkai stopped the car and looked in the direction Jack pointed. The surroundings were still thick with moss, but in the distance, a plume of white steam rose from the horizon, like a steam-era train, belching thick vapor from its chimney. Want to go take a look? Of course. This was a perfect opportunity to snap some photos of Jack herding his sheep. Once we got to the steam, we could take some pictures too, giving us a better understanding of Iceland. Perfect. Jack simply left the sheep there, unfazed by their wandering. He got in the car and said to Yerkai, let's go, I'll take you to see the volcano. Is that a volcano? And what about your sheep? They won't run away. There was another road leading that way, but it became increasingly desolate. Not even the moss had grown around it, it was as barren as the surface of the moon, with only occasional broken rocks on the ground. As they drew closer to the steam, Yerkai spotted a rainbow and heard the sound of rushing water. And that sound? A waterfall. Yes, Jack nodded. Iceland has a lot of waterfalls, practically everywhere, and they're all spectacular. At least better than the ones in England. Driving along the road, they soon came into view of a waterfall. It was vast, seemingly at least 30 meters long and about 5 meters high, but most importantly, the water was hot, with steam constantly rising from it. A rainbow appeared in the sky. A jagged staircase led down to the water below the waterfall. The car could no longer drive further, as the road ahead was too narrow to pass. The two of them got out of the car, and Yerkai exclaimed in amazement, raising his camera. No, no, no. Jack quickly stopped Yerkai. What's wrong? Here, just quietly observe. It's best not to take photos, as the Icelanders say, to avoid disturbing the elves. Okay, Yerkai said with a hint of regret, putting away his camera and continuing to follow Jack forward, not down to the waterfall, but deeper along the river. The temperature rose noticeably, and the smell of rotten eggs filled their noses. They walked until they reached a point where there was no road. They were at the top of a mountain, with no roads to the left, right, or front. The only way down was to descend from behind. The view from this spot was incredibly broad, like a natural observation deck. Yerkai stood at the edge of the cliff, gazing at the scenery below, unable to recover for a long time. This is too magical. Looking to the left from here, there is a huge snow-capped mountain in the distance, covered with white snow that never melts all year round, while the scene below the mountain in front is like a desert. The magical thing is that countless smokes came out from the ground, one after another, as if the lid of a pressure cooker was opened, and steam gushed out like swords. And it was not just one steam, but countless white mists gushed out at the same time, and the whole world was white. When the wind blew, the smoke swayed with the wind and rose to a place high in the sky where it could not be seen. Jack said, "Be extra careful here. Sometimes the wind is very strong. People have been blown away here. Try not to leave this path." Iceland's shocking and unprecedented wonders are definitely the biggest surprise of Yukai's trip. Yukai stood there for 20 minutes, doing nothing, as if the hot spring waterfall he had seen earlier had washed away all the makeup from his body, and he was transforming into a butterfly and ascending to heaven. Jack also stayed with Yukai for a long time before saying, "Let's go, or we'll be too late back home." Back on the road, the sheep and horses were indeed nearby, no more than 20 meters away from their original location. It took almost 2 more hours to drive to Jack's farm. It was incredibly remote. The surroundings resembled the grasslands of NMG, but the difference was that the grass here was withered and yellow. Yukai had never seen green grass in Iceland. All the grass was this pale yellow. Wooden fences enclosed a large area. While Iceland's usable land is small, its population is even smaller, so each farmer has a large plot of land. After herding the sheep into the fence, the two of them returned to the house in the center of the farm. It was made of wood and was large, but its design was strange, a mixture of modern and ancient elements. It must have been built by someone who didn't understand house design, copying an old house. Chapter 404, Reverence for Nature. The entrance staircase was high, leading directly to the second floor. The ground floor still had windows, indicating it was still in use. The staircase's height reminded Yukai of a Chinese tradition. The wealthier the family, the higher the threshold. But if it were this high, so high that you could enter the second floor directly, only an emperor would dare to build such a house. Upon entering, Yukai saw an elderly man and a middle-aged woman knitting in the living room. Although it wasn't dark, candles were lit, and surprisingly, there was no heating. They relied on the fireplace for warmth. This place was truly remote. This house was built in the middle of a vast wilderness, a vast wasteland with no village or shop nearby. It took 2 hours to walk there, and even half an hour to drive to see a human presence. If Yukai stayed here for a few days, he would find it beautiful and romantic, but if he stayed here permanently, honestly, Yukai would have to admire them. Not everyone has the courage to leave modern society and step into the wilderness. Jack introduced Yukai. "This is my father, Lambert Quint, and this is my wife, Finna Quint." Yukai stepped forward and shook hands. "Nice to meet you. My name is Sean Yi." After Jack introduced Yukai to the two, they sat back in the living room and chatted. Finna went to the yard to collect firewood. The living room had paintings, hanging candlesticks, and many tools, but no refrigerator, no TV, and none of the modern conveniences. It was a room without any electricity. "Is this the house you live in year-round?" Lambert shook his head. "We only come here every winter. First, to be close to nature, and second, to take care of the farm animals during the winter. God knows what would happen to them without us." It turned out to be a second property. Lambert was in his 50s or 60s, and had gained considerable weight, like an American chubby man. He sat on a huge sofa in a thick sweater, but he was in good health, able to eat and drink, and had the energy to work. Lambert explained to Yukai that the house had been passed down for a long time. It burned down decades ago, but they quickly rebuilt it on the site. No wonder the building's design feels so out of place. The fat old man told Yukai that when he was only 6, his family ran out naked. If it weren't for the warmth of the fire, they would have nearly frozen to death. Lambert attributed their survival to the elves' help. "Our family moved here in the 19th century, and we are now the 7th generation." At this point, Lambert dug out an ancient book that recorded their family history. The book chronicled the major events of each year. Jack said, "Every summer, for the family reunion, over 100 people gather here. It's a lively time. If you were still in Iceland then, you'd be welcome to visit. If I were still in Iceland, I would definitely come." Yukai's family was small, and they didn't have much of a sense of family. He envied this lively scene. After all, what people want most is what they don't have. Saddles and various horse riding equipment were placed on the wall. Jack asked Yukai about them. but neither of them chose to use them. Jack was a little skeptical of Yukai's abilities, but he still let him out. There was no saddle, no stirrups. Icelandic horses are short, so mounting them is easy, just by pressing their necks. But how could a horse let you just sit on them? You can't touch a tiger's butt, but you can't sit on a horse's back? The Icelandic horse said no, and struggled mightily. Only when it was tired did it finally concede to being ridden. Memories of last year's experience surfaced, and tears streamed down its cheeks. It turned out the time of year had arrived for a human to ride on. Seeing how easily Jack had handled it, easier than he'd remembered, Yukai's confidence surged. He found a most beautiful Icelandic horse, excitedly stroked its neck, and leaped onto it. To Yukai's and Jack's surprise, the horse didn't struggle, but roared with joy, even more excited than Yukai himself, even trotting its front hooves. Yukai was stunned, and so was Jack. Wasn't I training a horse? Yukai still wanted to be a cowboy, clinging to the horse's neck, letting the unruly animal sway left and right, refusing to get off. But why did you surrender? Why not give it some face and struggle a bit? But horses, with their intelligence, didn't understand the concept of giving face. They smiled when they were happy, and ran when they were pleased. So, it broke into trot. Stunned, Yukai slapped the horse's belly with his feet to accelerate, controlling its direction with his mane. It was as obedient as a veteran horse that had been trained for years, completely without any temper. But it didn't take long for Yukai to return. He still had to saddle up. The lack of protection rubbed his thighs, causing pain. Icelandic horses might not have the stamina to run, but they had great endurance. While they weren't fast, they could maintain high speeds for long periods without stopping to catch their breath, something Yukai admired. The ancients said that a 1,000-mile horse wasn't one with great stamina but lacked endurance, but rather one like the Icelandic horse, capable of long-distance, high-speed gallops. As night fell, they returned to the house for dinner and would stay there for the night. Although there were only 4 of them at dinner, there was red wine, goblets, candles that lit the entire room, pristine white plates, and tender, flavorful lamb chops. Yukai was convinced that a meal like this, with lamb chops of this quality, would cost at least 1,000 yuan at a Western restaurant. Lamb from anywhere else doesn't taste as good as Icelandic lamb, surpassing the taste of beef. Besides the lamb chops, there were whole potatoes, broccoli, corn soup, and bread. The sumptuous meal made Yukai a little embarrassed. Putting himself in their shoes, he realized that if it were just his family, the meal wouldn't be so elaborate, even including the wine. Late at night, in his room, Yukai pondered how to repay them. Giving money was out of the question, unless he no longer wanted to be friends with them. But there was no other way he could help them. Should he promote their farm's sheep in his travelogue? He'd ask Jack tomorrow. He was at a party today and wouldn't be back tonight. Thinking about the travelogue reminded Yukai of the scene he'd witnessed earlier in the mountain. Icelanders forbid going down the trail. Amidst the sulphurous mist, those massive rocks no one dared approach resembled enormous, ancient faces, their faces embodying the expressions and feelings of countless years. Coming here from the urban fabric of Reykjavik, from a bustling world to a world of pure nature, Yukai felt the insignificance of humanity. Humanity truly is so insignificant in the face of nature. Humanity should revere nature, Yukai thought to himself, a phrase he intended to include in his travelogue. This is the attitude humanity should have towards nature. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 405 Daydreamer. Rising early, breathing in the fresh air. Yukai was actually awakened by the bleating of sheep. Though they were quite far away, his keen hearing kept him awake mid-sleep, and he couldn't fall back asleep after hearing the bleating. He pushed open the door, and the air, scented with the fresh scent of grass and trees, washed in waves by the chill wind. It seemed the heavy rain last night had ravaged many of the flowers and plants. In the distance, Jack's family was shearing the sheep. The sheep on this farm have 2 fates: most survive but are sheared, while a small number are sold to become what Kelly calls fresh October lamb. Yukai speculated that Icelandic lamb tastes so good because the sheep are raised in the wild and fed a good diet, wild blueberries and pure ice springs. Animals raised in such an environment, even pigs, would become delicious. Just like the pigs Yukai had seen at the zoo, those Mr. Pig bodybuilders, if their thighs were chopped off and made into ham, wouldn't it be incredibly sweet? Damn sweet. Yukai couldn't stop thinking about meat. Last night's lamb dinner was definitely the best he'd had this year. Dew fell on the withered grass as Yukai trudged along, feeling his body temperature drop a few degrees. Approaching Jack, Yukai asked, "I want to write a travelogue, and I'd like to include you guys in it. Is that okay?" "No problem," Jack said with a smile. "It's unlikely that many people would come to me just because they read your travelogue, would they? Even if they did, it would be great." He was the tour guide, and the more people came to him, the better. After eating his bread, Yukai spotted a skateboard in the room. The skateboard looked like it hadn't been used for a while. Yukai picked it up and knocked it around, feeling it was still usable. He took it out and asked Jack, "Is this thing supposed to be fine? I already had it when I got here." "It's fine. You want to skateboard?" "I want to go to town, but walking is so tiring, so I figured I'd go skateboarding." Yukai was a decent skateboarder. Saoirse taught him, and after a few days of practice, he was pretty good at it. At least he had no problem navigating the streets. There were few cars on this road in Iceland, so a skateboard was perfect. "You're going to Dolfaldsfjord? There's nothing fun there. Why don't you drive?" "No, I'll just have a skateboard." Anyway, he was bored, and skateboarding the whole way was much more fun than driving. Otherwise, why would they call it skateboarding or driving? The name alone made it clear which was more fun. Iceland's roads were of excellent quality. Yukai didn't know the quality ratings, but this road looked just like the highway, just a little narrower. The road from here to Florence was smooth and had few inclines, which was one of the reasons Yukai chose to skateboard. Otherwise, the climb would have been almost as fast on a skateboard as walking. It would have taken him 2 hours to reach Florence by foot. They passed the active volcano they had seen yesterday, still belching smoke. Thick white smoke and clouds merged into one, blurring the lines between heaven and earth. With volcanoes like this everywhere, weren't they afraid of eruptions? Just then, a bicycle came from the opposite direction of Yukai, whizzing past him with a gust of wind and heading off into the distance. It was so fast that Yukai had to warn him, "Don't drive like that. The road's slippery." Before he could finish his words, the bicycle veered sharply, flying toward the side of the road, hitting a rock and slamming into the ground. The cyclist was fine. He fell to the ground but appeared unharmed. Yukai ran over, skateboard in hand, helped the man up and asked, "How's it going? Do you need any help?" He was very thin and half a head shorter than Yukai. For a Westerner, this height would be considered half disabled. After hearing Yukai's question, he replied, "I'm fine." He checked the time and looked into the distance with sorrow. The time was almost up, and he still hadn't made it. Even if he had the courage to go to Greenland and Iceland, he still couldn't make it. Yukai looked in the direction of his gaze in confusion. "That should be where he went yesterday, right? You want to go there?" The man sighed, first thanked Yukai, then checked himself for any injuries. Fortunately, he was wearing warm clothes, otherwise he would have definitely suffered some scrapes when he fell to the ground. "Well, I was going to go there, but it's probably too late to run over now." He introduced himself, "My name is Walter Mitty." From his accent, it can be seen that he is an American. Although he doesn't know why, Yukai can see that he really wants to go to the volcano over there. "My name is Sean Yi. You seem to want to see the hot springs and volcanoes." No, I don't want to see the volcano, I'm looking for someone." "Forget it, I'm fine." Walter felt that even if he ran faster, he probably wouldn't be able to catch up, so he gave up his plan and asked Yukai, "I'm sorry to bother you, you don't have to worry about me." Yukai said, "You should be a tourist, right? Just arrived in Iceland." "Yes, I just arrived in Iceland today. The nearest town from here is Florence. I'm about to go there. Want to join us?" Walter agreed without much hesitation, but he was still worried and dejected. He almost caught up with the time and almost found the person. Yukai was riding a skateboard, looking at Walter who was in a bad mood. He thought for a while and patted his shoulder vigorously. "Hey, buddy. Can you skateboard? If you can skateboard, you can use it to go over there. Believe me, the speed of a skateboard is not slower than a bicycle. Maybe you can find the person you are looking for." I can't." Yukai shrugged. He had no other choice. He might as well take Walter to Florence. There would be a car there. It would be very convenient for Walter to go to Reykjavik or rent a car to find someone. With one more person, Yukai couldn't ride the skateboard quickly and could only skate slowly on the road. Walter was not talkative, so the atmosphere between them was very dull. Yukai felt that he had to find something to talk about at this time, otherwise it would be too boring. Why did you come to Iceland? Just to look for someone. Yes, I followed a clue and came here, but failed in the end. But it's good, at least I have been abroad, and I can finally write something in the travel log left by my father. What will you write? Walter stopped and looked into the distance. I will write that I have been to Greenland, took a plane driven by a drunk pilot, and jumped into the sea from the plane. Ah. Yukai was a little surprised, and asked quickly, what about the pilot? How is he? He's fine. Oh, it's not what you think. The pilot was delivering the express, and I jumped into the sea with the express. Walter was a little embarrassed. He messed up this matter, and he always messed up things. Oh, so that's how it is. Go on. There was a shark in the sea, and it was approaching me, so I fought it hard. I hit it in the eyes and repelled it. The people on the ship arrived in time and saved me. You don't believe it? No, I do. But the poor shark, maybe it just wanted to come and see what had fallen into the sea. They're nearsighted and can only see very close objects, so everything looks very close. But Yukai also understood Walter's approach. Put yourself in his shoes. If you accidentally fall into the sea and a shark swims towards you, what do you think will happen? A. The shark is coming to save you. B. The shark just comes to pat you and won't do anything else. C. The shark is going to eat me. Any normal person would think the shark is coming to eat them. So in this case, you have to fight the shark with your bare hands, and the best way is to attack the shark's eyes. Now, Yukai was no longer bored, and asked with interest, what happened next? Did the shark leave you? Yes, it did, and I passed out after being rescued, and didn't wake up until the next day. This travel experience was truly remarkable. Walter was just a newcomer, and Yukai, who had traveled abroad numerous times, hadn't had a story as captivating as Walter's. It's fantastic. You must record this in your travel log. Is there a follow-up? Walter nodded and continued, when I woke up on the boat, I found a logbook Sean had left on board. The location was today, at that volcano over there. Wait, you said photography? Yes, photography, what's the problem? But photography is forbidden there. Fortunately, no Icelanders knew about this. It might seem a minor issue, but if it were disclosed, it would be a national event. How dare someone disrespect the elves? Yukai was sure that if you were caught, tomorrow's headlines would be about a photographer being banned from Iceland. This is a very small country, but the will of the people is the will of the nation. Icelanders have taken this to the extreme. The influence of the people is truly immense. Nothing much, please continue. After that, there's nothing much? I found a volcano on the map, so I rented a bike and drove towards it, but the roads in Iceland are incredibly slippery, and I've already fallen several times along the way. True, but you're riding your bike so fast, it would be strange if you didn't fall. Why did you seek out Sean? He's a photographer. Sean is an excellent outdoor photographer. He's photographed snow leopards up close, and he's a longtime client of our magazine. Our magazine is closing down, and we're about to publish our final issue, but the photo we were going to use for the cover has been lost. I see. That's good, though. At least after this trip, my life experiences have become richer. Yukai consoled him. Traveling abroad alone takes a lot of courage. It gives you the courage to face the bleakness of life. While life won't become carefree after a few trips, it can help you live with hope. Now that you're out here, why not have a good time in Iceland? At least Iceland will make your trip worthwhile. They walked for an hour until they reached the town. From above, it looked like a village, too small, with only one street. The houses were neatly arranged, but not numerous, and it looked like there were only a few people living here. It felt like less than 1,000 people. But there were bars, hotels, and restaurants. Having a bar was great for Walter. He wanted a drink right away. The two parted ways, and Yukai walked along the street to see if there were any other interesting spots. He soon stumbled upon a hot spring hotel. Icelandic hot springs aren't artificial, they're all natural. Yukai walked in with his skateboard and booked a hot spring room. The European-style hotel was luxuriously decorated, lacking a bit of charm compared to those on the islands, but the convenience was excellent, And the temperature was just right, not too high. After soaking for 2 hours to remove the grease, he got a call from Jack. "Yee. Are you still in town?" "Yes, I'm at the hot springs. Berg Hot Springs Hotel." "Haha, you found a great place. We go there sometimes. By the way, do you want to join our party? I'll pick you up." "Sure." It seemed he didn't need to worry about grabbing dinner, he could just go and eat and drink. Refreshed, he left the hotel just in time to see Walter and another rugged-looking man chatting and laughing. Yukai greeted them. "Hey, Walter." "Yee, that's you." "Oh, this is Sean. I found him." "Oh? Is this the guy who went to take photos in other people's forbidden areas?" He glanced at Yukai's face, smiled, and tried to shake his hand. "Sean Lee? I saw your profile in a magazine. Your photos are great." Yukai shook his hand. "Yours are pretty good, too." He said it was good, but in his heart he was thinking, "Damn, why haven't I heard of this guy before? Am I really that ignorant? Should I go back and subscribe to a few magazines that feature photographers?" "Did you find that photo?" Sean said. "I put that photo in a gift for him. It's a pity he's so boring, haha. If you put it that way, it must be an interesting photo." "Yes. At least I think it's interesting. That photo isn't outdoors, not of a snowy mountain or desert, but of a simple person. Do you know who it is?" "Walter." Walter seemed to be the person who specialized in photo processing at the magazine. Because of this, he would bear a great deal of responsibility if the photo was lost, which is why he was so obsessed with finding Sean. "Yes, I figured since this is the magazine's final edition, I should dedicate it to the people who made it what it is." Walter lowered his head and smirked. He was just a daydreamer, never imagining someone would photograph him at work and use him for the cover of a magazine. Just then, a car approached the highway. Jack opened the window and said to Yukai, "Yee, let's go. You two want to join us?" Sean shook his head and said, "No, we've had a busy day. We're going to the hot springs." Yukai pondered the story. Walter was a passionate man, but life forced him to daydream in the city. His quest to travel abroad was driven by a search for a lost photograph. The journey unfolded unnoticed. He hesitated, retreated, but he ignited the flame of courage. He bid farewell to the steel jungle of the metropolis, crossed the blue skies and white clouds of Greenland, and battled sharks in the stormy sea. Yukai imagined what would happen next. Would he have continued running to the volcano if he hadn't met Yukai? Maybe. Humans will be more resolute when they are not around their kind. A small setback will not shake their will. Then what if he learned skateboarding again? Using a skateboard on a deserted road in Iceland, escaping from a volcanic eruption. A story appeared in Yukai's mind. Maybe this story is not that good, but Yukai likes the spirit it represents. Just like what Yukai said before. The hardships of life will not become carefree after a few trips, but it can make you live with hope. Dangerous Chapter. Chapter 406 Zero Degree Club. This place was truly small, yet incredibly well equipped. Yukai had never imagined such a small town could have so much, including a private club. Can you believe it? Located on the edge of town, it was a small, red, two-story building. The club's name was Nullgra, meaning 0 degrees in Icelandic. It could also be called the Zero Bar or the Zero Club. As expected of a capitalist country. The first floor was decorated like a small bar, but it could only accommodate no more than 30 people. Ascending the stairs to the second floor, one was greeted by a living room. While heated, the fireplace still functioned, its flames crackling with wood. A large window, its white blinds drawn, offered a view of the street below. It was deserted and somewhat deserted. 6 or 7 people were already inside, and Jack introduced them to Yukai one by one. The Zero Bar was essentially a gathering place for the town's residents, just as some enjoyed strolling in the square or visiting the river islands. These people shared a passion for singing in chorus. They had formed a choir. Among them was the mayor of Uffaljustva, a man in his 40s with a buzz cut, black-framed glasses, and a white shirt and black vest. He had none of the arrogance of a government official. If Jack hadn't told Yukai this man was the mayor, Yukai would have mistaken him for a schoolteacher. There was beer on the table, draft beer with a rich, malty aroma, served in large tankards, the kind that could hold a liter, a nod to his generosity. Yukai reminisced about his experiences, drawing gasps of amazement from these Icelandic gentlemen, who had never been abroad. Over the next hour, several more people arrived. When they announced they were all present, Yukai counted them. Their choir consisted of 21 singers and 1 conductor. They included everyone from the mayor to experienced sailors, farmers, and supermarket owners. They all gathered together for a common passion, and Yukai found it quite amusing. "Warm up your voices," the conductor said. "It's worth noting that this guy is the owner of the 0 Degree Club, Weeks, a very handsome guy. With his bun and neat beard, he looks a bit like Thor from the Marvel movies, but with a slimmer build. He's wearing a white shirt and overalls." Yukai sat off to the side, drinking, and watching them with interest. Weeks, probably thinking Yukai was bored sitting there, asked, "Would you like to join us? But I don't know what you're going to sing. It's just a scale. You know how to do it. Come on," he said. Everyone stood in a circle. There were wooden chairs in the outer circle, not for sitting, but for stepping on. After all, with more than 20 people crammed into this room, there wasn't much space. Some people stood in the front, and some stood on chairs in the back. Everyone, holding beer mugs, sang along to Weeks's direction, "Do re mi fa mi re do, do re mi fa so, fa mi re do." It was a simple tune, but it sounded quite exotic. Yukai felt he could finally stop straining his voice with those ah-ah sounds and adopt the scale instead. After a while, Jack approached Yukai and asked, "What do you think? I really like this atmosphere." Yukai loved traveling abroad because he wanted to get away from his familiar social circles and meet new people. No one knew him, no fans, and the people he met were all very interesting. Jack laughed and clinked his glass with Yukai, then began to drink, his beard stained with the white foam of beer. "I'll tell you a secret. We didn't come here to sing in the first place, but to drink. But we couldn't tell our wives that, so we said we were here to sing and sing together, ha ha ha. Ah, this. Although I understand, our Icelanders also so henpecked? It seems henpecked is a universal culture. No, that's not the way to say it. It should be said that it's about loving one's wife." After a short break, everyone gathered around Conductor Weeks again. Yukai, unsure of what songs they were going to sing, watched them with his glass in hand, eager to hear what Icelandic music was like and how it differed from Irish. Iceland, after all, was originally discovered by the Irish. The beer is flowing again, in our homeland of Gelderland. The victors of war enjoy meat and jam. Come, have a drink, in our homeland of Gelderland. There was no accompaniment, only a unified chorus. Yukai closed his eyes and listened. The chorus seemed to come from the ocean, from the singing of sailors hiding in the hold during a storm. The storm whipped up waves on the ocean, rocking the sailboats constantly, yet they remained steady on the water. This ancient tune had a magical power to evoke associations. Of all the Western countries Yukai had visited, the Celtic music heard in Ireland was the most resonant with Eastern people. Icelandic folk songs probably fell into this category, but through variations and transformations, they sounded different. Just like Chinese music and Icelandic music, although they share a common origin, after being introduced to the island nation and evolving over hundreds of years, the island nation gradually developed its own unique musical style. At the end of a song, everyone raised their glasses and shouted, "Hurrah! Hurrah! Hurrah!" Yukai also cooperated, raising his glass and shouting, "Hurrah!" He knew this was a sign for a toast, and of course he had to make a presence known. Everyone was speaking Icelandic. I just couldn't sing the song, so don't treat me like an outsider. What kind of scene was this group of men shouting hurrah? Walter, passing by the street outside the bar, almost thought the Europeans were about to start another war. I wonder if a beer war counts as a war? No one can leave here early unless they're drunk. Yukai was also drinking heavily. From afternoon to dark in Iceland, the beer seemed to get better and better. Among the dozens of people present, only a few were actually drunk, and only a few people passed out. The mayor, likely drunk, burst into song, his glass raised. "High on the mountaintop there is a shepherd. Come on, come on, come on, come on." He lets loose and sings with all his might. Come on, come on, come on. This singing style originates from a unique and niche genre in the Swiss Alps. It's quite rare globally, but it's incredibly captivating, especially with its frequent shifts between true and falsetto, earning it the nickname one of the most difficult singing styles in the world. So, the question is, can the mayor sing this difficult style? The first few lyrics are fine, and the melody feels right. But when it comes to the crucial beat, requiring true and falsetto, the mayor's own alternations completely distort the melody, yet, miraculously, it still sounds good. This suggests the mayor has musical talent, right? If he'd studied music as a child, he might be a musician now. Chapter 407 High Class. The sound echoes across the fields and the city. Come on, come on, come on. Everyone in the club burst into laughter. The mayor paused, took a sip of his beer, and let out a long, contented burp. Alcohol is a magical thing. It can bring the deepest secrets of your heart to the surface. Some people harbor hidden joy, and after drinking, they bring it out and share it with everyone. And hidden sorrows are also brought to light, making people feel relaxed. When Yukai first entered this place that afternoon, he thought it was an upper-class club, with white shirts and dungarees, or white shirts and vests, and their hair meticulously combed, full of style. But a few hours later, that first impression was completely ruined. Everyone's cheeks were flushed, their arms around each other, their white shirts stained with alcohol, and their beards were covered in beer foam. Aside from Yukai, the most handsome guy, Weeks, had his hair down, his bun now undone, and he was playing guitar and singing. His songs were much better than the mayor's, and they were Icelandic folk songs. It was a very soft version, the tune a bit like an Irish thrush. His unkempt hair contrasted sharply with his soulful singing, but that didn't stop everyone from stopping to listen. Before, when he'd been conducting the group and hadn't sung, Yukai had thought he wasn't a good singer. But now, he sounded quite professional. Was Ninkei a professional? But to sing such a sad love song so well, one must have a story to tell, or perhaps someone who holds a story close to their heart, never forgetting it. Who among us living on Earth doesn't have a story? It's just that most people have forgotten them. After the song, Weeks was still puzzled by the change in atmosphere. Yukai didn't know what to say. He couldn't just say, "You sang so well that everyone was swept up in the song's mood, right?" That wouldn't be a compliment. "Let me try," Yukai said. Hurrah! Everyone roared. He couldn't sing, but he was a master at making noises. Having previously heard the mayor sing The Lonely Shepherd, Yukai wanted to challenge himself to this singing style, often called the world's most difficult. As for the song, of course, it had to be new, so no one would notice even if he made a mistake. Having only been in a new city for 5 days, Yukai could already write several songs in 10 minutes. "Weeks, lend me your guitar." Weeks handed the guitar to Yukai, his eyes full of affirmation, saying, "Go for it. After you finish singing, you'll be a member of our club." "I guess I'm not one yet." Yukai took the guitar with a confident smile and strummed the strings a few times. The sound was excellent. Weeks was definitely a musician in his past. But he wasn't here to act as a detective, so Yukai didn't bother to pry further. The guitar played a familiar Nordic yodel, drawing the attention of those chatting in the distance. The mayor, who had previously sung The Lonely Shepherd, especially, leaped with excitement. "You're the mayor." Yukai had seen this kind of scene so many times that he was no longer able to complain. Were all Icelandic government officials like this? Iceland also has no foreign military. This might be the most bizarre country Yukai has ever encountered. But it's truly fascinating. Yulidi o yulidi alidi alidi o yulidi alai. I want to fly to the sky, herd sheep. Feed my beloved goats some marshmallows. I want to stand on the sea, scoop up a big moon, and hang it on the roof, shining brightly. I want to sit on the top of a mountain, listen to the wind sing, wait for the clouds to part and the first rays of sunrise to shine on my face. I want to wander alone, walk far away, and even if I can't walk anymore, I won't panic at all. The mayor took a swig of beer, wondering if he'd heard a song like this before. A new yodeling piece? It sounds interesting, and the lyrics are beautiful. The onlookers were also amazed. Someone actually sang it? This inhumane "come on, come on, come on, come on" was actually sung. And the person who sang it was in our club? Wow, this is simply amazing. Applause, applause. Everyone's emotions were stirred, and they began to get excited again, instead of being obsessed with a song that Wix had sung earlier. Songs can really affect people's emotions, otherwise why would some songs be banned in certain occasions? Wix pushed aside the people surrounding Yukai and asked Yukai, "Did you write this song yourself? Why do you have such an idea? I can feel. This song should be written by you. You should be a singer from China, right?" "Not really a singer, but I like singing. Singing is a way to express emotions. You know, sometimes I just can't help but want to sing out the emotions in my heart." "Yes, I have had this feeling." Wix agreed. He took Yukai to a small corner of the club and asked, "I founded this club. It has been 5 years now. What do you think of it here? You are the second person who asked me this question today. My answer is still, it's super awesome, very awesome, and unforgettable, especially when singing in chorus. There is an incredible power. Haha, yes, because we love each other, we are all a family. Yukai nodded and said, I can feel that everyone is connected in heart. Then I invite you to join the club. Do you agree? You don't have to do anything, but after you agree, your name will be on the membership list of our club. I've also made a club medal and given it to everyone. Really? You can join the club without doing anything. Of course it's impossible. To get my medal, only I can agree. You are the first foreigner I recognize. Jack said you were just a temporary guest in Iceland. This is such a pity. Iceland is a place suitable for permanent residents. I believe and am sure that Iceland is suitable for long-term residents, but my dream is to travel around the world. Yukai fell in love with Lake Thorning in Iceland. It was so cool year-round, with ducks and swans always swimming in its waters. I heard that when the lake froze over in winter, the swans and ducks would sit in rows by the lake to hibernate. It sounded very interesting. Unfortunately, Yukai's ideal was never to stay in one place. If he didn't travel the world, how could he discover more places as beautiful as Lake Thorning? In the bar on the first floor, which could only accommodate 20 or 30 people, there was a wall with many signatures, and Yukai needed to leave his own. Yukai wrote his own name, the Chinese characters for Yukai. The medal that Weeks had made himself was also very interesting, modeled after the British Royal Order, and it looked particularly beautiful when worn on his chest. Suddenly, he felt a sense of class again. Chapter 408 The Most Difficult Chinese Song. After returning to Jack's house, Yukai felt dizzy. He put the medal in a box and went to sleep. When he woke up the next day, he remembered what happened yesterday and smiled knowingly. He got out of bed and washed up. Suddenly, the song he sang in yodeling style emerged in his mind, so he changed the lyrics into Chinese and hummed it involuntarily. I want to fly to the sky, go and herd sheep, and give my beloved sheep some marshmallows. Singing in Chinese is smoother than singing in Icelandic. Recorded and posted on Bilibili. For some reason, the live broadcast signal in Iceland has not been very good. Yukai couldn't broadcast it to them, so he could only post some vlogs in Iceland on Bilibili. Jack's family didn't shear the sheep, but he didn't see them outside the door. The weather was beautiful today, and it hadn't rained last night, so Yukai simply set up his camera on the ground and sat on the grass, facing the camera. Yesterday I went to a party in a small Icelandic town and wrote a song. I'll sing it first, and then reproduce it when I get back home. The title, let's call it Expansion. The entire song was improvised by Yukai, and the lyrics weren't particularly well researched, but there were a few lines he really liked. I want to sit on the top of a mountain, listening to the wind sing, waiting for the clouds to part and the first rays of sunrise to shine on my face. I want to wander alone, walking far away. These lyrics describe what Yukai is currently doing, wandering alone, walking far away. After recording, he checked and found nothing wrong, then put the camera away. It was already running low, with only one spare battery left. Jack rode back from a distance. Yukai also took the opportunity to say, Jack, I should go back. Would you stay a few more days? Wix wants to invite you to a few more parties. No thanks, thank Wix for me. I can't stay in Iceland for long, and I want to go to the Arctic as soon as possible. I have to go to Reykjavik to see if there are any opportunities. You want to go to the Arctic? Yeah, it's very close here, so I really want to see it. Jack scratched his yellow curly hair with some embarrassment and said, that's a bit difficult. No one here goes to the Arctic often. If you want to go to the Arctic, you'd better go to Svalbard and find those Arctic research stations. Yukai asked in surprise, oh? How do I get there? He knew it was difficult to find a ship to the Arctic in Iceland. He went back only to look for clues to the North Pole, and had never thought about going to the Arctic in one go. Svalbard? Is it far from Iceland? Getting a boat out of Iceland is much harder now than before. The docks are all full of tourist boats, but there's definitely one in Reykjavik. Hearing this news, Yukai wanted to get to the Arctic even faster. He quickly said, thank you. I'll be leaving now. The weather's great today. Maybe I'll have some luck finding a boat to Svalbard as soon as I get back to Reykjavik. It's called Svalbard, right? Yes, I promise, Jack said earnestly. He returned to his room to pack up his belongings. As he left, Jack handed him the skateboard Yukai had used the day before. "Let me take you home. I saw you skateboarding so well yesterday, so I'll give you this as a souvenir." It was a vintage-looking skateboard. Even if Yukai took it home, he wouldn't have the heart to use it every day, but it would look nice on the wall. With the weather so good and the road so good, the drive to Reykjavik only took 40 minutes. He went home to charge his devices and open his laptop. Yukai had originally planned to go to the dock today to see if there were any boats to Svalbard, but now it seems he'd overthink things. Just charging the equipment would take a whole day. He decided to upload the video online first. Expansion, recorded this morning, had no instrumental accompaniment or special effects. After Yukai transcoded it and uploaded it directly to his Bilibili account, it was arguably his most shabby video yet. But it was also the most authentic. After Yukai converted it to Chinese, he also altered some of the lyrics. The entire song took only a dozen hours to create before he recorded and uploaded it online. Yukai's confidence was truly remarkable. While others might go through countless steps from writing to recording to publishing, Yukai only spent 10 hours, and he only listened to it once. He began uploading. Zooming back to the background, Yukai opened the WPS interface and created a new text document, naming it Daydreamer. This is the story of an American who has never been abroad, searching for a photographer. Originally, Walter had simply traveled to Greenland, then to Iceland, where they met in a small town. But as a story, this plot was too bland. It needed some twists and turns. Having lost a crucial photograph, Walter, under pressure from his boss, traveled to Greenland. A series of events led him to Iceland, where the photographer was photographing a volcano about to erupt. Newly arrived, Walter had no idea the eruption was imminent. Upon reaching the base of the volcano, he saw the photographer taking off in a helicopter. Fortunately, Walter was rescued. Returning home, Walter learned from others that the photographer was going to photograph snow leopards, so he set out again, crossing the snowy mountains. That's what makes a story interesting. Yukai's fingers tapped away rapidly on the keyboard. The outline of this story had actually already formed in his mind yesterday, and now he was just refining it a little. Meanwhile, many people had also discovered the video Yukai had uploaded. Although it was still early in China, only 4 or 5 in the morning, thanks to Yukai's vast following, this extremely simple video quickly amassed 30,000 views and 1,000 comments. Putting aside those meaningless firsts, there were also some listeners who found the song quite novel. Yodeling is such a niche genre in China that there hasn't even been a truly yodeling song in Chinese. Yukai's Expansion is arguably the first such song in Chinese. Because the transition section is so difficult, even many music professionals struggle to sing it. Countless netizens commented, calling it the most difficult Chinese song to sing. The keyword quickly became a trending search, rapidly climbing the rankings. Yukai, of course, was oblivious to this. He hadn't even realized the video had been uploaded. He was completely immersed in the world of Daydreamer, following the protagonist up the mountain where the snow leopards were said to inhabit. Chapter 409, High Energy Ahead. Right square bracket. It was already evening when Yukai finished writing this short story. His WPS account showed that he had typed 60,000 Chinese characters today. It was just a short story, so that was about right. No wonder his hand was aching. He'd been writing so many words, from almost noon until dark. He was also hungry. Although he knew Iceland had takeout delivery, Yukai didn't know how to order it, so he put on his thick down jacket, opened the door, and left his warm home. Iceland was still bright at night. Reykjavik was full of streetlights. This country experiences polar night, forcing everyone to walk in the darkness. Iceland also experiences snow, making the roads icy and prone to falls. Losing sight in such conditions was unacceptable. Consequently, Reykjavik is dotted with streetlights, always on at night. But pedestrians were few and far between, and Yukai walked for a long time without encountering a single person. On a corner of the street, Yukai spotted a 24-hour convenience store still open. It seemed the only options were convenience stores. Thinking of getting a hot meal at this hour felt like wishful thinking. Europe wasn't like China. Even at 3 a.m., you could order food out. Or you could find a night market. It wasn't like there weren't night markets in Europe. Yukai hadn't been to many European countries, but he'd never seen a restaurant or night market selling prepared food at night. He bought some snacks and went home to boil water for a bucket of noodles. He opened the snack packaging and opened Bilibili on his computer. He wanted to check if the video had uploaded, and even click on it to watch it. There was something magical about seeing your own work online. Yukai loved it, especially when so many people were praising you for being handsome in the comments. It was so satisfying. A new video had appeared in his profile, with a new label in the top left corner. It had 1.9 million views, 10,828 people were watching, 27,405 comments, and it was ranked number 1 on the entire site. What the hell? Was this a random video I took? The one without the special effects or music? Did I upload it wrong? No, I clearly confirmed the content and changed the cover art. Clicking on the video, it was Yukai sitting on the grass. A barrage of comments flooded in, all high-energy reminders, high energy ahead. Even with Yukai's highest blocking level, it still affected the viewing experience. But Yukai knew the content of the video after all, so he continued watching despite the severe obstruction. In the video, his head nodded to the beat of his own voice. Without accompaniment, Yukai had to find the rhythm of the song himself. His habit was to nod his head. Of course, this was only what he did before the song began, when trying to find the beat. If you were standing on the ground, Yukai would tap his feet lightly to find the beat. Yoli di o yoli di oli di o yoli di oli. Wow, what a powerful tongue. Brother Kai is truly worthy of being on par with the gods. Tactical nod. Hello, welcome back. I'm back again. With Yukai's influence, he directly promoted this rare singing method in China. The editor of Station B also gave Yukai face. When you click on the homepage of Station B, there is a video of Yukai sitting on the grass. Not to mention singing. Even if Yukai sits on the ground and does nothing, just recording a few minutes of his own video, it will become popular on Station B. After all, appearance is the most important thing in this era. Yukai found that when he used the yodeling method, there were the most barrages. Even if the screen was fully blocked, he would still feel that the barrages were very annoying. Many people were discussing how to learn this singing method. But Yukai himself didn't know much about this singing method, and he couldn't give them much help. After logging into Bilibili using the same account he'd used to upload a video, Yukai wrote in the comments section, "Thank you for liking my song. The yodeling style in this song originates from a unique technique found in the Swiss Alps. This style doesn't have fixed lyrics. It typically uses meaningless words to quickly switch between true and falsetto. Yuli is a common word. Once you get used to the rapid transition between true and falsetto, I believe everyone can quickly master this yodeling technique. This style of singing can easily convey joy, so I can't wait to share this song with you. Thank you again for your support, love you all." He clicked post a comment and pinned the comment. Within seconds, comments appeared below Yukai's. "Look what I found, a lone brother Kai, dead. Don't make any mistakes, the uphost and the baboon are not the same person. Thanks for sharing your experience. At Hawaiian Academy, our teacher is already teaching us this singing style." The comments above made me laugh. Front row, touch brother Kai, is Iceland fun? The video is so beautiful, I must go to Iceland next year. The round-trip fare to Iceland is enough to take you on a 10-day trip to other Asian and European countries. Unless you're wealthy or deeply in love with Iceland's natural scenery, Yukai doesn't really recommend traveling here. After all, the prices are too high. Products of the same quality as in China are sold at luxury prices. However, Iceland hasn't been like this in the past few years. The rise of tourism has caused prices to skyrocket, which is why some Icelanders dislike tourists. Icelanders don't have the luxury of wealth, and naturally they want to buy things cheaply. The Pink Pig supermarkets in Reykjavik are mostly owned by Icelanders living in residential areas. Yukai closed Bilibili and logged into Weibo, which he hadn't visited in a while. His private messages were still flooding in, and he had no time to sort them out. He was thinking of returning to China and hiring an assistant to handle his work-related matters. In the past, when there were fewer people around, Yukai would happily click on each one and read them. Now Yukai didn't even want to open his Weibo account. He finally understood why celebrities wouldn't reply to his private messages. Forget about replying, it was likely no one even saw them. Setting a search criteria would allow him to see only private messages from influential people. Real-time hot list number 8 historically difficult Chinese songs number 12 Yukai's new song debuts online, shockling millions number 15 what is yodeling Yukai checked the time. It was 11 a.m. Icelandic time, which would be 3 p.m. in China. With his popularity still to come, it looked like he could add another wave of Weibo followers. he could become even more handsome. Opening Weibo rarely, Yukai scrolled through the private messages from influential people. Some were fans, some were seeking business opportunities. Yukai had even met with several foreign film and television companies seeking the Harry Potter rights. Guys, you're a few days late. Chapter 410, Departure to the North Pole. Yukai, who had never worried about not being able to sell the Harry Potter copyright, no longer had to worry. The fact that there were so many emails from film companies in his private messages showed that everyone was very optimistic about the copyright of this book. Secondly, only the second part of the entire series has been published, and it will take a long time for all the plots to be concluded. There were also many invitations for Yukai to perform at various places and sing. These private messages were also considered spam to Yukai, because he would not accept such commercial performances. But private messages were not always like this. There were also some people who were always concerned about Yukai's travels and worried about his health. When he met such warm fans, Yukai also responded to them gently. On average, if he read 10 private messages, it would be considered a good thing if there was one such fan. Looking at the private messages, Yukai did not know when he fell asleep. It was already 8 o'clock in the morning when he woke up the next day. He quickly got dressed and walked towards the pier. Reykjavik has many piers, the new one and the old one. The old one is now a whale-watching pier. Those who want to see whales can find a ferry bound for the Arctic Ocean here. The captain will take you to a whale-watching spot and wait, returning at night. The ferry pier Yukai went to was newly built, and after purchasing his ferry ticket through the Icelandic ticket app, he almost always used it. Yukai couldn't find any ferry bound for Svalbard on the app, so he went straight to the ticket office to check. He waited patiently in line, and when the woman at the counter looked up, Yukai asked, "Are there any ferry boats to Svalbard?" "There are no ferry boats to Svalbard here. If you want to go, I suggest you find a private sailboat captain. They'll let you on board, but the fees vary." Having a boat was good. The fees varied because the owners of these sailboats didn't have a unified organization to set the price. The amount depended on the captain's mood that day. He might even let you on board for free. There's an area at the dock filled with information about upcoming ships. It's cleaned every 3 days, and private captains rely on this area for their main source of customers. The entire dock reeks of fish. Actually, it's not a bad smell, it's cold, and dead marine animals don't emit a foul odor. Yukai has seen docks in other countries, and when it's hot, he can barely breathe, feeling as if he'll vomit if he breathes a few more times. Still no sign of a ship to Svalbard. Disappointed, Yukai left the dock and went to a nearby restaurant for breakfast, but there he found a surprise. Not far from him, 3 people were discussing a scientific expedition. Yukai wasn't sitting far away, and although he wasn't eavesdropping, he still heard everything they said. It turned out to be a private university expedition from France, renting a ship at the dock to head to the Arctic. Upon hearing this, Yukai immediately stood up. "Hello. I'm here because I long to get to the North Pole, too, but I haven't found a way to get there. I overheard your destination this time, and I'd like to ask if I can go with you." One of them quickly said, "Okay, but honestly, renting a boat is quite expensive. Let's split the bill, and you'll have to pay your portion of the ticket no problem," Yukai said with a smile. The departure was set for 3 days later. During those 2 days, Yukai bought a thicker down jacket and boots specifically for treading on ice. He also finished writing the 3rd Harry Potter book and sent it to the publisher. 3 days later, Yukai boarded the sailboat bound for the Arctic. The ship was named, rather femininely, the Princess Anne, but its captain was a bearded, burly man who matched Yukai's every Viking image: a face full of flesh, a sallow nose, a love of drinking, not tall, but very strong. Their ship looked very retro, with a blue hull and a long rail at the front. When the sails were unfurled, there were 6 sails, counting from front to back. From a distance, it looked like the sailboats seen in the anime One Piece, only even larger than the protagonist's ship. The ship was roughly divided into 3 decks, upper, middle, and lower. Yukai stayed in cabin 7, a small room with 2 bunks, similar to those on a high-speed train. Yukai preferred sleeping on the upper deck. Although climbing in and out was a bit inconvenient, Yukai loved the small window next to the upper bunk. This small window was right at sea level. As the ship sailed, it rose and fell, and the water inside the window would surge in with the hull's movement, washing the glass like a washing machine. When the ship rose, the water immediately drained out. On the middle deck, There was a retro bar, but the liquor cabinet was filled with a variety of liquors, and no two bottles were the same. There were fixed tables around it, and further ahead was the dining room. There was a wide selection of whiskey brands. It seemed that whiskey was the ship's favorite. He pushed open the door, circled around, and ascended the deck from the front. There were 5 people on deck now, 4 sailors chatting, while one was using a telescope to observe icebergs in the distance. Yukai approached the person looking into the distance and asked, "What did you see today?" "It's you, seal." "I saw seals and dolphins." When he first boarded the ship, Yukai was as excited as the other 3. But he had been on a ship before and knew what it was like, and he also knew what to expect. The ocean scenery was essentially the same, except for the numerous icebergs and glaciers. These icebergs and glaciers floated on the surface like small islands. You might think they were islands, but these icebergs don't stay in one place forever. 90% of their bodies are submerged, rootless. This is what makes them so different from normal islands. The person Yukai was talking to was called Hillary. He would appear on deck early every morning with a telescope, scanning the ocean all day long, never getting tired of it. The other 2 people, named Strong and Justy, were probably still asleep at this time. They both suffered from seasickness, vomiting and having diarrhea on the first day on board. This condition made them miss a lot of the scenery. After all, this is the Arctic Ocean, the northernmost place in the world. Now that the ship has entered the Arctic Circle, Yukai can now say that he has arrived in the Arctic. There is still no internet at sea, but Yukai has been recording videos with his camera. Unlike in Iceland, every minute and every second in the Arctic is worth remembering, so he wants to record the whole process. Yukai plans to put these videos in his personal space, waiting to take them out and reminisce in the future. Chapter 411 Drinking in the Arctic Ocean. Back in his room, Yukai dug through his luggage and found 2 bottles of Arctic Ocean. This orange-flavored carbonated drink was one of the better ones Yukai had ever tried, but he hadn't bought it at the Asian supermarket because he liked it. He bought it because of its name. He walked up to the deck and handed one to Hillary. Hillary didn't care what it was, she just drank it. After a big gulp, she burped and said, "Thanks, it's delicious." Compared to Coke and Fanta, Arctic Ocean might not be as sweet, but it was much more fizzy and refreshing. Yukai said, "As long as you like it, I'll give you one when we get back to Iceland." Pointing the camera at himself, Yukai held up the Arctic Ocean and said, "This is the Arctic Ocean I bought at the Asian supermarket in Reykjavik. I finally achieved something, drinking Arctic Ocean in the Arctic Ocean. It's really quite refreshing. I recommend everyone come and experience it." Hillary suddenly said, "There's a polar bear." Yukai instantly perked up and looked in the direction he was looking, asking, "Where? Where's the polar bear?" To the right of the ship was a large glacier, larger than 10 Princess Annes combined. Perhaps due to the temperature, it was constantly raining ice. Hillary pointed and said, "There it is. Take a look first, I'll go get Strong and the others." Yukai had initially thought the polar bear was on the glacier, but he was wrong. The polar bear Hillary had spotted was actually on a small patch of ice beneath the glacier. The ice was only about 10 square meters, very narrow. The polar bear was sprawled on it, and it was unclear whether it was sleeping. The 2 still sleeping people came up wrapped in blankets. Since the boat was full of men, they weren't afraid of being seen. Strong, looking sick, shouted, "Did you really see a polar bear?" "Haha. I didn't expect to see one after only 3 days out." Justin looked around but couldn't see the bear. Anxiously, he asked, "Where's it?" Yukai pointed at the ice floe and said, "There it is, on the ice floe. Do you see it? Wow. It's a real polar bear. A living one, not one that lives in a zoo. Amazing. I must send this video to my friends." Aside from the sailboat's crew, none of the other 4 tourists had ever seen a wild polar bear. Like them, Yukai had only seen one in the zoo. That experience truly distressed him. In a small, enclosed exhibit, a polar bear paced back and forth alone. But the exhibit was always so small, so it kept circling within a tiny area. Countless tourists passed by the glass, some pressing their hands against the glass and yelling for the polar bear to get in the water. Now that I think about it, that polar bear was truly lonely. First, there's the environment. No matter how well a zoo simulates it, it can't compare to the real North Pole. The North Pole is truly Earth's purest land. Yukai feels that even the South Pole pales in comparison. Then there's the social aspect. Don't assume animals don't need social interaction. Because of their simple minds, they crave friends even more than humans. Friends, not the kids eating lollipops and holding balloons outside the window. After joining the Wildlife Conservation Society, Rachel often shares reports and articles from the society in the WeChat group. Yukai now feels that establishing a wildlife sanctuary would be much better than simply setting up a zoo. At least it would give animals a larger area to roam and allow them to live more comfortably. Being watched by people is already exhausting enough. After watching him for a long time, Justin asked, "What's wrong with him? Why isn't he moving? Maybe he's sleeping." Hillary speculated uncertainly. At that moment, a sailor approached, also standing by the boat's railing, and said, "It's definitely sleeping. Polar bears often do this, they snooze on a piece of ice and wake up out to sea." Polar bears rely on the ice to form platforms for hunting seals and other marine life. It seems this iceberg is their hunting ground, waiting for seals to come to them. Seals are very fond of icebergs like this. He certainly looks much more majestic than the polar bears in the zoo. It's a pity we didn't get to film him underwater, but I don't think he'll be the only one we saw on this voyage. The sailor said, "Yes, there are still plenty of polar bears along the way, but they've become increasingly rare in recent years, and some are really skinny. Graham, come help." "Coming," the sailor replied, turning back and smiling at them. "Have fun. The seasickness should be gone in a few days." Justin said sadly, "I'll probably die in a few days. I hope you'll come to see me and comfort my fragile and pitiful parents." They reached land in the afternoon. For the next 7 days, they would choose locations along the coast of Spitsbergen. Hillary and the others had come here to search for a special species of seagull. This was the first time they had been on land in several days. Yukai felt as if the ground was rising and falling with the waves, but he knew it was just an illusion. His mind was playing tricks on him. Everyone wore special shoes, slipping over boots. They resembled animal traps, but lacked a center line and wouldn't close, serving as a walking device for increased grip. Everyone was bundled up, their breath rising as white vapor in the air. The temperature here was below zero, much colder than Iceland. Despite the name Iceland, winter temperatures in Iceland never dipped below zero, and were far colder than in Russia. They had no idea what the seagulls they were looking for were, but they just tagged along, acting as competent accompanying reporters. The three of them had no idea the tenant they'd come to share the rent with was actually a photographer. The team's setup was incredible. A graduation project that had originally only required research had now reached the Arctic thanks to a wealthy classmate, and they also had a professional photographer. The Arctic wasn't entirely covered in ice and snow. Yukai could see a patch of black soil emerging in the distance. But the seagulls were clearly not there. There is a relatively high mountain nearby, so everyone needs to walk to the side of the mountain to see if there are any bird nests on the cliffs on the mountainside. If there are, they will continue to confirm, and if not, they will return to the boat and go to the next point. The only way to confirm is to use a telescope, because there is an agreement between the Antarctic and Arctic continents that drones cannot be used to shoot, otherwise it is an illegal act. After walking for a long time, they finally got around to the other side of the island. After confirming with a telescope that there were no seagulls they wanted to find, everyone slowly returned to the boat. It was very difficult to walk in these shoes, and the three college students felt a little disappointed after walking for 2 hours without any results. Yukai returned to the room and began to edit the footage he had shot today. Originally, he was not going to edit it, but Yukai thought these college students were very interesting, and he wanted to cut some videos as a gift for them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 412 Arctic Travel. For this Arctic trip vlog, Yukai wanted to try a different style. It would be split into 2 parts. This time, he'd focus solely on the journey from Iceland to the ship, while the second would detail his own experiences in the Arctic. He also wanted to use voiceover to describe the scenery and his feelings. Expressing his feelings directly into the camera felt a bit silly. Using a more artistic voiceover would create a more natural and atmospheric atmosphere. However, this increased Yukai's workload, and he didn't fall asleep until almost midnight. He lay on his side in bed, looking out the porthole. Though it was midnight, the world outside wasn't completely dark. Moonlight streamed down, illuminating the night sky, and even the ocean seemed to glow. Seawater occasionally surged into the porthole, but the glass kept the water out, allowing only the cold to seep in. He wrapped himself in the quilt, listening to the sound of the water as he drifted off to sleep. It was already daylight when he awoke. Yukai tore open a packet of mouthwash, rinsed his mouth, and then, like a zombie, made his way to the bar. He needed a steaming cup of coffee to wake him up. Hillary emerged, a vibrant figure, binoculars in hand, ready to take a drink up from the bar. Seeing Yukai already there, she said, somewhat surprised, "So early today?" "Yes, by the way, I have a video to show you." "What?" Yukai perked up, shook his head, and said, "It's still on the computer, I'll go get it." The fully automatic coffee machine didn't require waiting, so Yukai placed his cup under the spout and went downstairs to cabin 7 to retrieve his laptop. When he returned, Yukai found Hillary applying latte art to his coffee. The milk formed a clover shape on the coffee. While her technique wasn't expert, it was clearly someone who had studied the art well. "A good cup of coffee needs good latte art, it's the kind that gives it soul," Hillary said with a smile. "It's one of my most skilled techniques. It looks great." It was a little hard to bear to drink it now. Never mind, let him stay a few more minutes. He couldn't drink it right away anyway, the coffee was still very hot. Yukai pointed to the video he had made and said, "This is a vlog I made myself. It's all footage I shot a few days ago. It's in Chinese with English subtitles." "Wow, that sounds great. I'll take a look." The video showed a circular porthole. It was very close to the ocean, with water constantly pouring in with the waves. The words Arctic travel appeared on the screen, meaning a trip to the North Pole. After the water completely filled the porthole, the camera shifted to reveal the vast Arctic Ocean. Its color was different from the Pacific, but equally magnificent, with waves crashing. Seagulls soared above the ocean, giving voice to the voiceless North Pole. The screen went completely black, and a single line of text appeared, 2,200 nautical miles from Iceland. The scene shifted to a figure walking up the ship's stairs, the camera only capturing their feet and the narrow staircase inside the cabin. Then, it showed various areas of the ship, the bar, the restaurant, the bedrooms. The final frame of the clip was a short video Yukai had filmed alone the previous day while checking the distant peaks for seagull nests. In the video, Yukai sat on the ground, amidst withered grass. In the distance, the ocean stretched out. The sailboat looked lonely, like a ship frozen in the water, a feeling of profound solitude. On the other side of the ocean, a massive glacier blocked all view, and dark clouds passed low, brushing against the glacier's summit. The impeccable composition, coupled with the handsome face you'd find in a top magazine, gave Hillary a strikingly sophisticated air. It was hard to believe Yukai had filmed the video. "Oh my god." Yukai's face has looked up at the sky many times in the past few days, but he didn't realize that the combination of appropriate BGM and movie-style composition can make a person's temperament change so much. Yukai in the video seems very lonely, but in fact, Yukai is very familiar with everyone on the boat. He is an absolute social butterfly. The picture changed again, and the color returned to normal. Starting from the porthole at the beginning, the camera moved to the clothes rack behind the door. Yukai reached out and took a coat. The voice-over said, "Hi, I am Yukai. The story I want to tell you today happened in Pittsburgh Island. Yes, I came to the North Pole." Yukai walked forward with the camera in his hand and walked to the bar. "The ship I'm on is called the Princess Anne. Here's my favorite bar. It looks like a retro pub, with plenty of whiskey and a coffee machine. Now, let's go take a look on deck." A long shot begins from the porthole, taking in every corner of the ship from the cameraman's perspective. Yukai's voiceover continues throughout. The entire shot lasts 3 minutes. Finally, the camera is lowered to the deck, and Yukai walks to the front and sits on the rails. The feeling hits her instantly. Hillary didn't even realize the beautiful ship in the video was the one she'd been on during this time. "I've been searching for a ship to the Arctic in Iceland, but to no avail. But having been out and about for so long, I'm used to all sorts of unexpected things. Luckily, I met 3 good friends." The scene at this point is full of fun. The people in the shot are laughing happily. The protagonists are no longer Yukai, but Hillary, Justin, and Strong. The background music also becomes cheerful. Yukai searched his music library for a long time before deciding on this one to complement the scene. It was Alan Jackson's Chattahoochee. To the cheerful sound of guitar, Yukai introduced his 3 new friends in a voiceover: Hillary, who loved sitting on the deck and watching the ocean every day; Strong, who had just learned to play landlord and was addicted; and Justy, who was handsome but always seasick. We lived on the sailboat for 3 days. Glaciers were everywhere on the ocean, and the ocean near the glaciers was full of broken ice. Small creatures like dolphins and seals were common, and we even saw polar bears today. I'm in the Arctic. What will happen after we get to the Arctic? What kind of dangers will we encounter? What about wild animals and natural wonders? We'll see you next time. Hillary exclaimed in surprise. This is just, my God, so beautiful. But I think there might be something wrong with your description of me. I think I'm the most handsome of you. Hillary glanced at Yukai's face. Up, the most handsome one besides you. Chapter 413, The Cruel Animal World. Yukai laughed heartily. Okay, next time I introduce you in the video, I'll add a little more about you. I'll definitely make you the most handsome person on this trip. Can I show them this video? Of course, but I'd like to upload it online. I hope you're okay with that. Agreed, agreed. Hillary said loudly. Then, with a chuckle, she went to find her other 2 companions, carrying her laptop. This trip was actually quite simple. We were all going to the Arctic to see the world, to see polar bears, the northern lights, blue whales, and other natural creatures. It wasn't about finding seagull nests. Think of that as a goal, and everyone could work towards it during these 7 days. But the most important thing about being here isn't achieving the goal, but the scenery you see along the way, the scenery that belongs to the Arctic, to this forbidden land on Earth. In the second half of this video, Yukai hoped to capture them in high spirits. If you were alone in a video, wouldn't that be called loneliness? The Arctic is already so lonely, so why add a lonely person to the mix? Yukai took a sip of his warm coffee. The coffee beans were excellent, with an incredibly rich aroma, hints of milk, and a smooth texture. I'd originally intended this cup of coffee to wake me up, but after this period of activity, my sleepy mind had completely cleared up. Now, perhaps I was drinking coffee simply for the taste. 10 minutes later, 3 people arrived at the bar, shouting and sitting around Yukai. Oh my God, your video is so beautiful. Are you a director from China? I've said before, I'm a traveler and photographer. Strong said, it's beautiful. I'm looking forward to your next episode. Hillary said you'd upload this video online. Oh my God, those people must be fascinated by the North Pole. I'll probably have such dreams after my next video is out, Yukai said with a smile. This episode mainly explained why he went to the North Pole and the difficulties and hardships he encountered on his way there, as well as introducing his companions and the ship. There wasn't much description of the North Pole. Yukai himself found it hard to believe anyone would think of it after watching this video. Perhaps only Iceland would come to mind? Yukai's video featured a lot of footage he'd filmed in Iceland. Since aerial photography is permitted in Iceland, Yukai had plenty of it to work with. The next episode will feature the experiences of several people in Iceland. No one knows exactly what happened, and it's even possible they've accidentally ended up buried in the Arctic. Traveling in such a place is as dangerous as watching a volcanic eruption in Iceland. Yet, Yukai still yearns for the Arctic. It's precisely because this place is so pure and clean, untouched by human hands, the painters of art, for millennia. What it looked like 1,000 years ago is likely what it looked like 1,000 years ago. The sailboat continued its journey, reaching its destination in another hour. The goal was still to find a 3-toed gull nest, but everyone had realized they weren't here to find it, but to enjoy its natural beauty. So, what was the big deal about just walking through the snow for a few hours each day? Before the boat arrived, Strong suggested playing a few rounds of Landlord, a card game, a game Yukai had taught him, and his fondness for it was even documented in the video. But Strong wasn't embarrassed at all. Instead, he felt honored. Yukai joined them. After a few rounds, the disembarkation point came into view. Everyone threw on their thick clothing, pushed open the bar door, and stepped onto the deck. The captain laughed and said, "Boys, you're actually in the mood for a card game. Ha ha ha. Go ahead. There seem to be reindeer nearby, but you'd better stay away from Arctic animals. Feeding them is illegal. It's illegal, after careful consideration. This rule is a good one. Every place has its own ecological chain, and the Arctic is a closed loop. Any disruption in any part will have a massive chain reaction. Disembark." There wasn't much snow here, so there was no need to wear the ironclad clothes we wore yesterday. Just walk on the snow. The snow was very crisp, and you could hear the crunching sound when you stepped on it. It was quite pleasant. Walking through it made it easy to tell who was heavier and who was lighter. The heaviest person made the louder noises. They soon reached a snow-free area. The site they were going to inspect today was not far ahead. Just then, Yukai heard the sound of a herd of animals running and gestured for silence. A herd of Svalbard reindeer appeared before them. Are they wild? A sailor replied, yes, they are. It's rare to see such a large herd. These reindeer looked very much like sports to Yukai. They were tiny, the size of underfed sheep, and their dark eyes glared at him, perhaps curious about who this human was. As Yukai took a picture of them, Zusidi whispered beside him, Yi, look over here. After taking the picture, Yukai looked in Zusidi's direction and saw a lone white wolf dragging its two hind legs along the ground, each step incredibly difficult. No, it didn't seem like a wolf. It was too far away, and Yukai couldn't quite make out what kind of animal it was. Using his camera as a telescope, Yukai and the wolf exchanged glances. As if he had spotted Yukai, the wolf let out a mournful cry. It's a bear, a polar bear, Jusidi, unable to discern the white animal in the distance, exclaimed in wonder. A bear? A bear this small? I thought I'd spotted an Arctic fox, one of those snow-white ones. Arctic foxes aren't necessarily all white. A gentle reminder from Hillary. Too far away, they didn't see the bear's plight. If they had seen the details, I wonder if they would have smiled so happily. The polar bear was incredibly emaciated, its muscles practically gone, its bones wrapped in skin. It looked like a drowned dog. But even a drowned dog can perk up with a little shake, but this polar bear might never regain its vitality. Its hind legs were completely disabled, and with no way to get food, it could only starve to death. Hillary was also looking over with her telescope, and suddenly said, it really is a bear? So pitiful. What happened? Is it sick? The two sailors who followed the others off the boat were carrying telescopes. They took a look and said, it's not sick, it must be hungry. Hungry? There are obviously a lot of fish here, and even reindeer. And if that's the case, then we. Hillary said this, and suddenly remembered that you can't feed animals in the Arctic. Chapter 414 Dusk. Let's go, let's stop looking, said Zusidi. There was really no way to help the animal. Not to mention in the Arctic, even anywhere else, one cannot interfere with wild animals. This is the natural selection of the fittest. To put it more mysteriously, this is the fate of the animals. For example, in an animal reserve, a cheetah failed to hunt for the 10th time, and the remaining physical strength is no longer enough to support the next hunt. So even if humans are watching next to it, they cannot provide any help. This is a rule. Yukai took 2 photos, and everyone continued to walk towards the mountains. Although the island they were on was within the Arctic Circle, it was not part of the completely frozen area, so there were still many animals on this island. Not long after walking, everyone found an Arctic fox on the side of the road. It had brown fur and always looked at people with a timid look, which seemed very pitiful. But these Arctic foxes live a much more comfortable life than polar bears. Take pictures. These little creatures were very cooperative. Yukai's approach did not make them turn around and leave immediately. When the filming was finished and Yukai walked towards his companions, they jumped away. The Arctic fox is very similar to a smaller samoyed, but the bark is very different from that of the dog. Everyone was much slower today, unlike yesterday when they hurried along. Yesterday they walked for 2 hours in a hurry, and their feet were tired and swollen when they returned to the boat. But today when they returned to the boat, it was like a group of people just came back from a walk. Hillary felt that even if they didn't find the nest of the 3-toed gull this time, it was worth it. At least he saw many other animals he had never seen before and made some good friends. When Yukai returned to the boat, he found that there were several missed calls on his phone. There is no signal on the Arctic continent. Only on the sailboat can you connect to the outside signal and the network. Hi, Miss Mel. Yi, why did it keep saying I had no signal? Have you left Iceland? Yes, I'm in the Arctic. I only get a signal when I get back to the ship. I encountered a lot of Arctic animals today and got back a little late. You're in the Arctic? Yes, I found it's not that difficult to get to the Arctic. If you're willing, you can take one of the research vessels that go there. I'm also a member of a private research team. I'll consider it. Stephanie's tone was a little moved. Iceland was very close to the North Pole, but ships from Iceland to the Arctic were difficult to find and very expensive to rent. Stephanie didn't have the luxury of renting a ship just for a trip to the Arctic. Stephanie got down to business. Let's not talk about that for now. I've contacted Warner. They're very interested in Harry Potter and would like to contact you. By phone. Yes. If they want to meet in person, they'll come to China to contact you, but they won't come to Iceland. After all, they don't have a branch here. Stephanie gave Yi a number. After hanging up with Stephanie, Yukai didn't immediately contact Warner. Instead, he grabbed a bottle of wine from the bar. Strong, who was playing cards in the living room not far away, called out to Yukai, "Hey. Wanna play cards?" "No, have fun." They hadn't started gambling yet. If they played Landlord, a card game, it would be even more addictive. It wasn't bad now, though. Sometimes Yukai really wanted to play some fun Landlord music for Strong. He returned to his small room. It was so small it could only fit a bed, leaving Yukai with only half the space for a bed. There was no table, so Yukai lay on the bed with his laptop on his lap. This was good enough, at least it was comfortable. He could turn his head and see the scenery outside through the window. Seawater rolled in continuously. He took another sip of the liquor he had brought with him, and warmth spread from his throat to his body, gradually dispelling the chill he had brought back from the Arctic. He pulled out his phone, checked the contact number he had written down, and dialed. "Hello, this is Macmillan Wilfred." "Hello, Mr. Wilfred, I'm Sean Yi, the author of Harry Potter." "Mr. Yi. Oh my god, it's really you." Stephanie didn't lie to me. Macmillan hadn't imagined that the person so many film and television companies had been searching for so long had suddenly appeared before him. It wasn't until Yukai called that he finally confirmed it. "We've been looking for you for a long time, but we can't get through. Your work and the Harry Potter adaptation are bound to be huge hits. Are you considering selling the film and television rights?" Of course. Yukai wouldn't have called him if he hadn't. Yukai loved seeing his writing appear on television or in movies. It felt so good. "I heard you're traveling in Europe now. When will you be back in China? We'd like to discuss the copyright details with you. After Christmas, I'll contact you then. By the way, this number can be used to reach me directly in the future." They hadn't been able to get through before because Yukai hadn't saved the number. Now that it was saved, the number could be directly dialed through to Yukai's phone. It was like it was on his whitelist. Yukai hadn't changed his phone in a long time. His number had long been leaked by the media. If he hadn't enabled this feature, he would have received hundreds of calls and texts every day. Yukai had tried turning it on for a day, but the ringing never stopped. There were also texts. Reading them, it felt like they were all from girls, but Yukai knew without a doubt that some of them were from men. The thought that the flirtatious messages he was reading might have been from a man filled him with trepidation. After hanging up, Yukai had already finished his wine. He went out to the restaurant for dinner. When he returned to his room, the lights were still bright, but the sky outside the window was gradually darkening. A glimmer of dawn appeared on the horizon, indicating that it must be dusk. He donned warm clothes and went out on deck. The sailors were furling the sails. The massive anchor they had cast out made a huge splash in the water, and the chain clashed like a chain of bullets from a Gatling gun, slithering rapidly towards the sea. After dropping the anchor, even without anyone to steer it, the ship wouldn't stray far. At most, it would move erratically in a circle centered on the anchor. As expected, it was dusk, and a crimson glow appeared on the horizon. The sunsets in the Arctic were also dazzling, rivaling those seen over China's famous mountains. Without glaciers blocking the sun's path, the disk-like setting sun would slowly sink into the water, its warm light illuminating the glaciers and the Arctic Ocean. Yukai felt that the world was unnaturally quiet. Chapter 415, The Arctic. How beautiful. Yukai stood alone on the deck, lost in this enchanting abyss. Time seemed to slow down. It felt as if time wasn't ticking by second, but rather splitting each second in half, slowing down at least twice as fast. This allowed him to more clearly discern the ebb and flow of the ocean's waves. The Arctic Ocean was calm. Compared to the Pacific Ocean, which can stir with a single wave, the Arctic Ocean resembled a weathered adult, long since devoid of passion, replaced only by wisdom and indifference. The setting sun painted the world in a warm hue, adding a touch of warmth to this white, icy world, and suddenly making one feel, "Ah, so the Arctic has sunsets like this." At that moment, a black back caught Yukai's eye. With a puff, A column of water erupted from the ocean, reaching a height of over 10 meters, drenching even many on board. The bewildered Icelandic sailors were puzzled, but soon someone realized, it's a whale. Indeed, it was a whale. Yukai was the first to see it. He had reached the edge of the boat, gripping the railing with both hands as he gazed at the black back in the distance. It was so huge, even bigger than the boat itself. It must have been around 25 meters. The calls of whales filled the air, a mysterious form of communication, much like human speech. Yukai had always believed that other creatures, besides humans, could speak. They might not be very intelligent, unable to use tools or develop convenient gadgets, but they could indeed communicate. He had always believed this. Whales are a very special kind of fish, as their genes reveal. They are mammals that once left the ocean but, for unknown reasons, returned to the sea. Some people are very afraid of large things. Seeing a whale like this would probably make them faint. After all, the visual impact is so overwhelming that even Yukai felt a lingering fear. It's different from watching a video on a computer. Some things can only be truly understood by seeing them in person. Slowly, the whale sank into the sea, leaving only its massive tail. With a flap of its tail, the water splattered in all directions like a raging storm, creating a gentle rain on the ocean. Yukai looked up at the sky, sensing a heavy downpour after nightfall. Raining heavily above, drizzling at sea. It was quite intriguing. He wondered where the whale would go. Would it sleep nearby? Before Yukai could fully grasp the situation, the whale's actions revealed the answer. A massive mouth burst from the surface, gulping down a vast expanse of seawater. The amount it swallowed could fill a private swimming pool. It was also a way of telling Yukai, I'm here to eat. I've always wondered why whale watching boats in Iceland are so popular, but now I know. When you see a creature like this before your eyes, how can humanity maintain its complacency? We are not the masters of the earth, we are simply a species like them, living on it. The whale swam away, its call echoing through the air. If only the system could teach me whale language, then I could understand what it was saying. Speaking of which, since entering the Arctic, the system has been playing dead. There are only two places on Earth without any nation or humankind, Antarctica and the Arctic. Antarctica, specifically, is governed by international treaties, belonging to no single nation but to all humanity. The Arctic, on the other hand, has no specific international treaty governing ownership, and therefore likely falls under the high seas. This is why Yukai couldn't earn any check-in points here, and couldn't gain any knowledge about the area. But then, a thought suddenly occurred to Yukai. What would a system offer me if I went to Antarctica? Compared to the Arctic, Antarctica is clearly a separate place. Perhaps I could even learn the Antarctic language or some other reward. But if there was an Antarctic language, what would it be? Hi, Yi, are you still staying on deck? It's going to be very cold when it gets dark. A sailor said to Yukai. Well, I'm going home too. Besides, it was about to rain, so staying outside any longer was pointless. It would be better to get back to the warmth of the cabin as soon as possible. Putting away the camera, he followed the sailors back. They still had time to chat and brag in the dining room, so Yukai went back to his room to check the recorded video for any problems. If anything were lost to what he had just filmed, Yukai would be heartbroken. The scenery that occasionally glimpsed on Earth was something no amount of money could buy back, and even if it was the exact same scenery, Yukai couldn't guarantee that he could capture an identical photo. The next day, he was still angry early. The others hadn't gotten up yet, so Yukai lay in bed, scrolling through Bilibili on his phone. This sailboat must have some kind of signal booster. While the signal wasn't very strong and stable, at 720 resolution, there wouldn't be any lag. As he scrolled through Bilibili, a thought suddenly struck Yukai. Having internet, having a signal, what did that mean? Could it mean he could live a stream? Hillary suddenly knocked on the door and said, Yi, are you up? The captain caught a big fish. Come and enjoy it. The captain loved sea fishing, and whenever he had the chance, he'd sit by the boat with his expensive-looking fishing rod. But the first time Yukai saw the captain fishing, he knew he was a poor fisherman. And indeed, he'd only caught a few small fish in days. Following Hillary to the dining room, Yukai asked, Why are you eating fish? Aren't you going out today? No, the captain said it's going to rain all day, so we'll have to stay aboard. Luckily, we have this fish to keep us company. What fish? A big redfish. When they arrived in the kitchen, the sailor was already preparing the big redfish Hillary had mentioned, It looked like it weighed several kilograms, and its color was all red. No wonder it was called a big redfish. The captain saw Yukai approaching and burst into laughter, saying, "I followed your instructions and indeed, I caught a big fish." "Ha ha ha, thank you so much." Zucidi also walked into the kitchen. The narrow kitchen was crowded with so many people, so everyone went to the dining room to chat. At other times, a grand meal would definitely be enjoyed on deck, but it was still raining outside, so they had to make do in the dining room. At this time, the captain pulled out something that made Yukai's eyes widen. It was hot pot base. Chapter 416 Continuous Heavy Rain. This is a great thing. Captain, where did you get it? A Chinese couple once boarded my ship and gave it to me as a gift when they left. I heard you just put it in the boiling water. It seemed the captain wasn't very familiar with how to eat hot pot. Actually, hot pot is very popular in many countries now, and Yukai had seen countless hot pot restaurants during his travels. While certainly not as many as in China, it was still quite rare. In Iceland, Yukai hadn't even seen a Chinese restaurant, let alone a hot pot restaurant. Having been out for so long, Yukai had been craving hot pot for a long time. "I know how to make it, leave it to me," Yukai said happily. The hot pot base came in a bright red package. If it were a group of Chinese people, Yukai would have just put the entire package in boiling water, but since they were all foreigners, he only put half in. Europeans generally can't handle spicy food. After all, their diets are mostly sweet, and they rarely have anything as spicy as a hot pot. It was only because he had seen Yukai that the captain would have forgotten about the hot pot base. The kitchen was stocked with ingredients. Yukai whipped up a popular sauce and cut up plenty of potatoes and vegetables. This time, the hot pot star attraction was fish. Yukai enjoyed fish hot pot often, but such fresh red fish, it was something you only see once in a blue moon. After 20 minutes of solitary work, the hot pot base had completely melted in the pot, its aroma emanating. Everyone licked their tongues, their stomachs rumbling. The sauce was served, and the fish was added to the pot. 10 minutes later, Yukai pulled the first piece of fish from the pot. The white, tender flesh was tightly knit, the red skin slightly faded, and it carried the aroma of Sichuan peppercorns. Dipping it in the sauce, he ate it, his heart filled with happiness. In this foreign land, no, this is the Arctic, belonging to all of humanity. Eating such a hot pot on this untouched place is bound to leave any wandering Chinese feeling deeply moved. The familiar Chinese characters on the hot pot base, everyone scrambling around the pot to scoop up the meat with spoons, the mingled aroma of Sichuan peppercorns and chilies, everything, in fact, tasted like home. Strong cried out in pain, his breath sizzling, but he continued to search the pot for meat. The fish in the pot was quickly gone, and he had to reheat it. Don't worry about the spiciness, just drink plenty of iced milk. The lively dinner lasted 2 hours. Finally, after eating, they settled into the dining room, playing guitar, singing, and drinking. Everyone raised their glasses and sang. Yukai felt a bit like he was in one piece. So Yukai played guitar and sang Binks's Wine. I had material for my vlog again, which was awesome. It was raining heavily outside. Except for a few sailors who frequently went to the deck to check on the situation, everyone else was confined to the cabin, including Yukai. And to his dismay, he didn't think the rain would stop for the next few hours. This filled Yukai with despair, who had been looking forward to continuing his adventure to the Arctic. Now all he could do was hope it wouldn't rain like this tomorrow. After a party, Yukai was about to return to his room for a nap. As he was leaving, Strong enthusiastically asked, "Hey, want to play cards with us?" "No, have fun." Yukai was considering whether he should recommend the Happy Landlord app to Strong. But if he did, would he just create a new gambling addict? Yukai imagined Strong holding back his bomb, confidently shouting, 17 cards, can you kill me in 1 second? Yukai chuckled. Back in his room, he began to do nothing. The weather didn't allow anyone to go outside right now. Anyone who dared to go out in the Arctic rain would be considered mildly ill. So, inside his room, Yukai tried live streaming. He set up his phone in front of his bed, along with his laptop, the laptop for viewing the live stream's comments, the phone for the live stream. After starting the live stream, Yukai used his laptop to log into his own room. It feels okay, not as stuck as Yukai imagined. Although the picture is distorted sometimes, it does not affect normal viewing, which makes Yukai breathe a sigh of relief. It works as expected. This ship must be carrying a small base station, otherwise it is impossible to receive signals and network in the Arctic. I should be the first person to broadcast live in the Arctic? I'll tell you a joke, and I'll broadcast live in a few days. This joke is really funny. No way, sir. Why are you broadcasting live at this time? Wouldn't it be nice to continue being a pigeon? I'm going to stew pigeon soup. Seeing these comments, Yukai said helplessly, I have no choice. I was in Iceland before, and the network signal in Iceland was very poor. Although it is still very poor now, I am now in the Arctic, and there is a signal base station on the ship I am on, so I can broadcast live to you. There is a signal in the Arctic? So, they went to Iceland. Yukai held his phone in front of the porthole, allowing the livestream audience to see the small, round porthole in the seawater pouring in. Due to the heavy rain, the waves were noticeably stronger. This is my favorite view. Sometimes I can lie in bed for hours looking out this window. Sometimes I can lie in bed all day looking at my phone. Go to the sea. Go to the sea. Yukai, why don't you go diving? You want me to dive with this water temperature? If you say that, try going to the freezer without clothes for half an hour. Not more than that, I'm afraid I can't take responsibility. Many netizens were so silly, bringing Yukai much amusement. After a long while, the sky occasionally cleared up. Yukai took his phone to the deck to bask in the sun for a while, gazing at the Arctic in the distance, wondering if it would rain tomorrow too. While live streaming was fun, it clearly wasn't as exciting as taking risks. The clearing was only temporary, it would rain again in an hour. But having this window of opportunity was a welcome relief. Everyone emerged from the cabin onto the deck, and Yukai introduced his 3 friends to the netizens. I made a vlog about the Arctic. It hasn't been posted online yet, but I can still introduce these 3 friends to you in advance. Strong, known for his quirkiness and fondness for playing Landlord, a card game, was the most popular. Zucidi was also quite popular, considering he was handsome. However, standing next to Yukai, he lacked a certain charm, giving off the same impression as Strong and Hillary. Before the next rain arrived, everyone returned to the cabin. Chapter 417, Anchor, please look back. Yukai had miscalculated. It had rained for 2 days straight, and only cleared up after dinner the next day. The weather wasn't expected to change for at least 2 hours, so everyone went fishing on the boat. It was already getting late, and they couldn't continue their expedition to the Arctic. But Yukai's fans were delighted. They could watch his live streams whenever they woke up, 24 hours a day, and they even prayed for 2 more days of rain. Perhaps their prayers had paid off. Late at night, Yukai couldn't predict the weather by observing the clouds or the wind, and suddenly felt like a small stone had hit him. The captain, sitting next to him, said, "It's hail. Get back to the cabin." Yukai cursed inwardly. Was the Arctic weather like this only when he was there, or was it always like this? Why couldn't it clear up for 2 more days? The people in the live stream could only see Yukai's speechless expression. Those who could understand English tried to persuade him. They knew he had been hoping for the Arctic sky to clear up for days, and after a while, it finally cleared up, only to be met with hail. It was a truly despairing experience. Those who couldn't understand English kept asking what was going on, but they quickly guessed from the comments. So, the barrage of comments urging Yukai to return to the cabin filled the entire live stream, densely packed, like some streamers doing a barrage lottery, but with each person commenting multiple times. In Yukai's live stream, just one person saying a single word could turn the room into a PowerPoint presentation. With a sigh, Yukai stood up to pack up his fishing gear, but suddenly, he noticed the direction of the comments had shifted. Instead of urging him to return, they were now reading, "Look back. Streamer, look back. Brother Kai, look behind you. Wow. Is this the North Pole? This is simply so beautiful." Confused, Yukai, fishing gear in his left hand and a bucket containing a fish in his right, turned and was greeted by a sky full of dancing green lights, a dazzling ribbon of light that covered the sky like a celestial mass. This was the most beautiful and brightest aurora Yukai had ever witnessed, so bright it could have colored the entire ship. Between 2 enormous green auroras stood a purple aurora, its violet color somewhat similar to the night sky, and it was difficult to spot without careful observation. Is the Milky Way beautiful? Of course it is. Countless legends about the Milky Way have been passed down throughout history, both in China and abroad. Is the aurora beautiful? Yukai could say that it was even more beautiful than the Milky Way. While the aurora didn't appear as profound as the Milky Way, it held a far greater mystery. You couldn't understand why it appeared or disappeared, why the Milky Way could only appear in the sky, while the aurora could change shape. A flash of red light flashed across the distant horizon. While this red light was there, the entire world was red. Yukai's phone was filled with messages like, "I hope everyone's wishes come true. I hope everything goes as I envision. I hope I can go to Yenching University. I wish I could get into my dream university, Shenzhen University. In 2021, my family is in good health." Suddenly, all the wishes were coming in, and it was unclear who was leading the charge. Seeing Yukai still on deck, the captain called out, "Yi! Hurry back! It's going to hail. Here it comes." Yukai returned to the cabin with his fishing gear. The three brothers were just as excited as Yukai. Even though they were 20 years old, they were jumping around like little kids, filming the sky with their phones. Strong didn't let Yukai join in the card game. Capturing this incredibly meaningful moment was more important than playing cards. Back in the cabin, Yukai discovered that his porthole offered a direct view of the aurora. Thus, the world's most handsome sculpture was born. For a full 10 minutes, Yukai lay silent, staring at the distant sky. The people in the live stream could only see the back of his head. A barrage of complaints followed. Finally, Yukai remembered his fans. He turned around and pretended nothing had happened, sharing his feelings with everyone. Some netizens, without girlfriends or boyfriends and lacking a place to share their thoughts, posted on the live stream. For the first time in several days, the live stream was bustling with activity. Hail destroyed some of the sailboat's equipment, but thankfully the rain stopped the next day. Those bound for the Arctic went there, while most stayed on board to repair the sailboat. 2 days of heavy rain might have worn off everyone's bad luck. Shortly after leaving the ship today, they discovered a getaway nest on a cliff overlooking the sea. Hillary brought her camera to get a closer look. Since she couldn't use a drone, she had to climb higher to capture the getaway nest. Fortunately, the mountain wasn't steep. However, even with an iceberg like this, climbing it would have been difficult. It took several people over an hour to reach a height high enough to capture the distant cliffs. Yukai, who wasn't photographing the getaway nest, focused on the ocean. The Arctic Ocean truly possesses a unique aura. Don't assume that the world's major oceans are all identical. They are independent and inseparable. Anyone who has been to a mountain city will understand this phenomenon. The Yangtze and Jialing rivers seem like a wall separating them. The same is true at the confluence of the oceans. The Arctic Ocean was piercingly cold. Yukai couldn't describe himself as lonely, but the word aloof suited him well. Its icy aura repelled countless humans, yet it nurtured countless species within its boundaries. It was cold at high altitude, and even colder climbing the mountain, but the view was expansive. From there, Yukai could even capture sailors repairing the ship. Perhaps noticing Yukai, one of them waved in his direction, greeting Yukai. Hillary finished snapping photos and contentedly put away his camera. He said to Yukai, "Justy, and Strong, thank you for accompanying me on this graduation project. I never imagined I could reach the Arctic." Having a wealthy friend was a blessing, and Yukai had received considerable help from Sun Shuang during his college years. While Sun Shuang's family was wealthy, his pocket money wasn't much, so a life of luxury was out of the question. But he occasionally went out to improve the dormitory's meals and to the bar to woo girls. Everyone hugged Hillary. After taking the photos, everyone was ready to go back, but at this time Yukai discovered a fox hiding in the snow. This Arctic fox was different from the ones he had seen before. This Arctic fox was completely snow white. So everyone saw Yukai squatting down and waving at an open space. The Arctic fox was completely snow white and was hiding in the snow. For a while, no one could really find it. Perhaps this is one of the secrets for the Arctic fox to live so well in the Arctic. "What are you doing?" Zhu City asked curiously, but soon he found a fox running over. "Oh my god. An Arctic fox, Yi, do you know it?" The Arctic fox jumped directly into Yukai's arms. "I don't know it. Maybe it's because I like animals too much, so animals are very close to me." Chapter 418 Hello, Winter. 2 days of heavy rain wasted a lot of time, but fortunately, the work was done. Furthermore, they unexpectedly spotted the beautiful northern lights. The captain told Yukai that they rarely see anything like them. In this respect, Yukai was 100 times luckier than those who mistakenly saw the light from a lighthouse for the aurora borealis. The 7-day polar journey was truly too short. But stepping onto the Arctic continent from the sailboat and into the small boat, the freezing temperatures, and every moment of snapping photos have become Yukai's most precious memories. I had heard about the Arctic from my teachers since I was a child, and this time I made the journey myself, experiencing it with my own eyes and capturing a few scattered images with my camera. With a few friends, we trekked across mountains and rivers, searching for seagull nests, witnessing the most beautiful aurora borealis, savoring the flavors of the Arctic's thousand-year-old glaciers, floating on the ice-strewn Arctic Ocean in a small boat for the first time, and drinking Arctic water for the first time. All these memories made Yukai yearn for every sight and thing of the Arctic, even after returning to Iceland. But life must go on. As time went by, the weather worsened, and winter was approaching in Iceland. While the temperature difference between summer and winter in Iceland isn't that big, even a few degrees can bring snow and freeze over Lake Torning. Now, every morning, Yukai can see frozen puddles by the lake. This morning, the sun was a rare sight, and since it was the weekend, Ji-Qing invited Yukai and a group of Chinese friends living in Iceland to go on a picnic on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. Many Chinese people living in Iceland are women, at least 70% of them. Anyone who knew Yukai would quickly come and take a photo or ask for his autograph. He readily obliged. He was just an ordinary person enjoying life, and he was truly lucky to receive so much love. Just don't look for me in China. If Yukai were a minor celebrity, he'd enjoy walking down the street without a hat or mask and being recognized. But that's clearly impossible now. Once a fan noticed something, the whole world would know, and a shopping mall would be packed. The mall owner was ecstatic. Even if he invited a celebrity to perform there, they wouldn't have such a huge following. Therefore, Yukai didn't have much freedom in China, and at home he could only play games. A group of people drove 4 cars and gathered for a picnic at Snæfellsnes. Their main meal was a sandwich made by a mother, sandwiched between crisp lettuce, which made a crunching sound when they bit into it. Then someone pointed to the beach and said, "Look! Is that a whale?" Everyone quickly looked towards the shore. Even in Iceland, not everyone has seen a whale. Unless they go out to sea in areas where whales are often seen, they rarely come to the Icelandic coast. The sea was calm, and the winds that always plagued Icelanders hadn't caused any ripples in the Arctic Ocean. Sometimes it really felt like the ocean was frozen over. But everyone present knew that the Icelandic coast wouldn't freeze, at least not yet. "Wow, Zhaoking, you're lying." "No, it's really a whale. It's here again, look." Yukai had been staring at the seashore, mainly because there were so many birds flying around that he couldn't see them all. He decided to just stare at the ocean, just in case he saw something he hadn't seen before. "It's a seal, or a dolphin," Yukai said. Something had indeed emerged from the sea, but it was very small, so Yukai thought it must be a dolphin. These silly creatures often jump around on the surface, with the same temper as human children. Ji-Qing thought this made more sense. Suddenly, she thought, "It's time for winter swimming again." "Are you going this year?" "Winter swimming? Come on, I don't even dare to go in the Icelandic Sea in the summer." One girl trembled in fear when she heard Ji-Qing say such a thing. The water in the Arctic Ocean is notoriously cold, and we Chinese aren't a fighting nation, so there's no need to go winter swimming. "I'm quite interested. Can you tell me more?" Yukai asked. Yukai had never winter swimmed before, and even after being in Iceland for so long, he still hadn't snorkeled or swam. Regardless of whether he'd go or not, it never hurt to learn about it beforehand. "It's winter swimming," Ji-Qing said, counting on her fingers. "I heard you need shoe covers, gloves, and a hat." I think those are the only 3. You should be able to get them by asking the salesperson at the supermarket." "Just 3, and you're counting on your fingers." Ji-Qing was so cute sometimes, it made me wonder if she'd been trafficked to Iceland. After eating, they found a small church nearby. There was only one pastor inside. Seeing so many people eating and carrying food, he nodded affably, probably assuming they were tourists visiting Iceland. After all, they were all Asian people. Even though he'd already taken his own trash with him, Yukai still wanted to say something in Japanese. "Sorry, we won't picnic on your property anymore." But it was just a thought. Walking to the cliff edge, listening to the call of the waves, a flock of seabirds began a concert, each one singing loudly, their emotions reaching a fever pitch. They were actually fighting, but such a fight clearly wouldn't kill the birds. I've heard of cows and wolves dying in fights, but I've never heard of seagulls dying in a fight. He didn't know if these 2 fighting seagulls were a male and a female, but he thought they might have developed feelings for each other. Yukai always felt a deep sense of joy when he was with nature. In the afternoon, the car returned. Iceland's weather is unpredictable, sometimes rainy and sometimes sunny. Today, they were lucky. It was sunny where they were, while rain was falling to the right. Low clouds revealed a rainbow. As the car drove along the road, the rainbow followed him, making Yukai feel as if it were chasing him. It was a truly magical feeling. The car was a bit warm, so everyone asked Yukai, who was sitting on the bed, to open the window. After spending so much time in Iceland, he was no longer afraid of the cold, and he was wearing thick clothes, so his cold resistance was top-notch. Outside the window was the almost bare forest. This place was a natural pasture for sheep in the summer, but now it was bare. After the rain and the spring snow melt, countless flowers and grasses would appear on the ground again. The cold wind rushed in through the window, ushering in a burst of laughter. Yukai smiled too, holding his palm out the window, letting the wind blow on his palm, as if someone was pushing his palm. Hello, winter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 419, Neighborhood Auntie? The days spent in Iceland were dwindling. Ji-Kwing and the others knew Yukai would leave Iceland after Christmas and return to China, so their gatherings became more frequent. Yukai would often visit Ji-Kwing's or Kelly's homes for a bite to eat. Tour guide Jack was attending a football match and invited Yukai to watch at the Icelandic Stannon Football Club. Yukai, a casual fisherman at Lake Thorning, happily went. Despite Iceland's small population of only 300,000, the football scene in Iceland was truly exceptional, and the national team was also quite impressive. Upon hearing this, Yukai felt incredibly disappointed. Why should a football team with 300,000 people be considered superior to our own? Iceland began building indoor stadiums in 2000, following Norway's lead, and now boasts 11. Considering that only 12 towns in the country have populations over 4,000, it's a shame. Because of Iceland's poor weather, open-air stadiums are rare, so most practice sessions are conducted indoors. Seeing Jack at the stadium entrance, he showed no signs of nervousness about playing football. He was dressed in a down jacket, jeans, and a knitted beanie. After handing Yukai a ticket, he said, "I'll go get ready. Be sure to cheer me on later." Then he ran backstage. Yukai, bewildered, was about to watch a football match where he had no idea who was playing. It couldn't possibly be a male tour guide versus a female tour guide, could it? That would be exciting. The ticket didn't have seat numbers, so Yukai asked a staff member and learned that seating was free. Upon entering, Yukai encountered a group of older men who looked like football fans, their average age around 45. After his ticket was checked, Yukai caught up with them and said in fluent Icelandic, "Hello, are you fans of the teams playing today?" "Yes," one of the men replied with a smile. "One of the teams playing today is from my hometown, and the other is from another town." Soga, it was a match between two small-town football teams. However, Yukai didn't underestimate Iceland's small-town football team. If one Icelandic football team was equivalent to 10 national football teams, then a town with a football team was equivalent to one national football team. So, this was a national football match, sure to be exciting. Everyone was entering, and Yukai joined the queue to enter the stadium. This stadium was tiny, incomparable to some domestic stadiums. It could only hold a maximum of 3,000 people at a time. For a football stadium, it was definitely tiny. At such events, Yukai habitually walked to the front few rows. After checking that the seats didn't have any special labels, he quietly sat down and waited for the game to begin. Then, Yukai spotted someone he often saw on TV. The president of Iceland was also here? But this was the president. There was no security, no checkpoints. The president was let in directly, walking a few meters ahead of Yukai. He was talking to his son, both wearing the same colored football jersey. Then, like an ordinary Icelander, they sat and watched the game. Is this the president? Love it. The guys watching the game must have had friends and family from both teams. From the audience came the sound of coordinated clapping and singing in unison. And, you know what, hundreds of people singing together was quite beautiful. Before, Yikai had only experienced the charm of a chorus singing the national anthem. Icelanders seemed quite reserved when watching football, unlike the Irish or British who get hysterical, but when their favorite team scores, some still stand up and cheer. Yikai gradually came to appreciate the charm of football. So when Jack's team scored, Yikai also shouted, "Go!" Yikai noticed that everyone around him seemed calm, even looking at him with half smiles. Was he in the wrong position? He stuck out his tongue, stopped shouting, and just watched the game as usual. The game was over quickly, with Jack winning 3-1. The president of Iceland, who was sitting not far from Yikai, came over and said, "You speak Icelandic quite well, young man. Are you living in Iceland?" "Yes, but I'll be returning home soon." "Oh, what do you think of Iceland?" He wasn't going to try to persuade me to stay in Iceland, was he? What if? Should I refuse the president's invitation? But maybe I was overthinking it. How could a president be so bored? Perhaps his son had gone to the bathroom or something, so he just chatted with me. Iceland is wonderful, better than many countries I've been to. It's a country that offers unprecedented tranquility and harmony. People and nature coexist harmoniously. I love it. Thank you for liking Iceland. You're welcome to consider it when you choose a place to live in the future. He smiled at Yikai and turned to leave. Sure enough, the president hadn't lowered his status to invite Yikai to stay in Iceland, but Yikai was surprised to receive such an invitation. Last time, Yikai heard that the president of this country had visited an elementary school student because the student had written a letter. Although he was the president of a country, he was essentially no different from the neighborhood director who lived next door. Yikai even thought the president should be more approachable than the neighborhood director. After waiting at the exit for a while, Jack came running over. "Hey! Did you see me score a goal?" "Of course I did." Yikai wasn't face blind, he could tell the difference between Europeans. Jack played well, scoring one of the 3 goals. Jack boasted to Yikai, "It was just the other team's luck. Otherwise, I would have scored more than 1 goal, at least 2. Maybe 3. Yikai nodded in agreement. Jack had perhaps completely forgotten he was British. From his accent to his appearance to his mannerisms, he resembled an Icelander, a fact he perhaps didn't even realize. "By the way, Jack," Yikai suddenly thought of a question, "if I want to go winter swimming, what do I need to buy and where can I go winter swimming?" "Winter swimming? It's right over there at the lighthouse. Just shoes, gloves and a hat will be fine." These 3 points were the same as what Ji Qing said, but Jack immediately said, "Do you want to swim in winter? My God, don't you think it's too cold? The water temperature is 0 degrees. Yikai was a little surprised. "I thought you would think this is normal. I heard that many Icelanders can swim in winter. I'm not Icelandic." He argued for himself. Chapter 420 Lighting Ceremony. Iceland's winters are long and dark, so every household hangs a circle of colorful lights in their windows. So whenever you pass by the street, besides the street lights, you'll also see small lights in other people's windows. Some are colorful, others a steady warm yellow. Walking down the street at night, cold and dark, looking up, you'll see lights everywhere, both from your own home and others. The thought of it all warms you up. So Yikai bought a small lantern and placed it in his own window. Even after turning off the lights at night, the thought of the light still burning in front of his window improves your sleep. Polar night should be approaching. Iceland now has only 2 hours of daylight left. People who have to wake up every day for work never wake up, and leave work in the dark. Newcomers will certainly find this routine difficult to adapt to. But Yikai doesn't have to work, so he can sleep when he's sleepy, and sleep until he wakes naturally. But he never knows when he'll feel sleepy. The sky is always dark anyway. If you don't go out or open the window at noon, you'll miss the only 2 hours of daylight left, and the day will feel incredibly long. Some people can wake up after 5 hours of sleep. Yikai gets a little more sleep, usually around 8 or 9, before waking up. Then, he faces almost a full day of darkness, which is so boring that he doesn't know what to do. It's snowing in Reykjavik. Yikai's house is right on Reykjavik's main street, so you can often hear people slipping and falling. Today, he heard someone cursing after falling, so he got up and started getting dressed. He took milk and cheese bread from the refrigerator, spread some butter on them, and started eating. He picked up his phone to check out some interesting videos on Bilibili. Just then, Yikai realized the sky was starting to brighten. Morning had arrived, but it was almost midnight. He had missed daylight these past few days because of sleeping, and this was a rare opportunity, so he decided to go out for a walk. He wrapped himself tightly in his down jacket and padded pants. After all, Yukai didn't have the same antifreeze skills as young girls. Just because he wasn't prone to illness was no reason to endure the cold. He pushed open the door. It wasn't snowing outside, but it was so cold that even breathing hurt. A neighbor opened the door and smiled when he saw Yukai. "Are you going to the lighting ceremony too? If so, let's go together." Yukai was impressed by this neighbor. They had 5 children. The oldest was in college, and the youngest was only 6 years old, a very cute little girl. Today, the whole family was out as well, but there were only 4 of them. 3 of the children had to go to school, so only a 6-year-old girl and an 8-year-old boy were left. Upon seeing Yukai, they sweetly called out, "Brother Sean, good morning." "Good morning, may the elves protect you and help you grow up quickly." Yukai didn't know what the lighting ceremony was, but it sounded like a rather interesting Icelandic activity, so he nodded and said, "Okay, let's go." The ceremony took place in the usually empty town square, and today it was unusually bustling. Yukai hadn't seen more Icelanders there in a month. Snack stalls and hot dog carts lined the streets, giving it a feel reminiscent of a Chinese temple fair. Children, their faces red as frozen apples, ran around rubbing their cold hands. The adults didn't chase them, but watched them playfully from a distance. After asking around, Yukai learned that the lighting ceremony was actually the lighting of the Christmas tree in the square on the first day of December every year. Yukai looked at the tree. It was small, 3 meters tall, and unadorned, just adorned with colorful lights. The lighting ceremony was essentially the lighting of these lights. Thinking about it, it wasn't that strange. Yukai wondered why these Icelanders were so focused on the lighting of a Christmas tree. The daylight was fleeting, and sunset was approaching. Sunset was also incredibly brief, and during this time, the lighting ceremony was about to begin. 300 Reykjavik residents, perhaps even tourists from other countries who had come to Iceland for the holiday, chanted in Icelandic, 10, 9, 8, 7, 2, 1. The countdown ended, and the lights surrounding the Christmas tree lit up. The sky was dim, even the distant street lights seemed dim, but Yukai felt that the lights on this small Christmas tree were particularly dazzling, their warm glow illuminating everyone's smiling faces, a truly beautiful sight. As was customary, everyone followed Santa Claus around the tree, and then Yukai saw some parents and children dancing in the cold wind. December, the month with the least sunlight of the year, always had to find ways to brighten the day. Before they even started shopping, it was already completely dark. They had no choice but to go home with their neighbors. In fact, Yukai had been out and about quite a bit over the past 2 months, either visiting volcanoes in the north or geysers, waterfalls, and geysers in the east, having joined numerous tour groups. As a result, he'd spent relatively little time at home. A neighbor saw Yukai about to enter the house and said, "Do you live here alone? Want to come over? We're making Christmas cookies today." "Sure." Yukai was thrilled to have found another thing to do. The 2 children were similarly impressed. They thought Sean was such a wonderful man, someone who had traveled so many places, knew so much, and even told them amazing stories. Yukai didn't know much about his neighbors, he only knew the man was Grantham, the woman was Wendy, the 8-year-old boy was Steve, and the little girl was Little Moon. Since they didn't go to school, they often played in the small yard outside their home, and Yukai loved to sit on a reclining chair there, reading a book and soaking up the Icelandic sunshine. It was through chance encounters that he first learned about this family. But this was Yukai's first time visiting someone else's home. Back home, Yukai found a Chinese knot Ji-Qing had brought to Iceland. Ji-Qing had brought a basket of these to give to her Icelandic friends. Apparently, she didn't have many Icelandic friends, and after a few years, only half the basket was left. Going to Grantham's house, Yukai discovered he had more than 5 children, and even a baby, crying loudly, who would likely grow up to be a vibrant young adult. There was also a grandmother in her 70s named Greet, whom Yukai called Grandma Greet. The first step in making Christmas cookies is kneading the dough. Chapter 421 Christmas Cookies. Yukai, who volunteered to take a piece of dough and, imitating the others' techniques, gradually smoothed it out. Finally, he divided the dough into balls of approximately the same size and, using a rolling pin, formed them into round dough sheets the size of hand-pulled pancakes. This dough sheet is actually very similar to spring rolls from northern China. Not long after, the children returned from school. They were a little embarrassed to see a stranger in their home, But Yukai's relatable aura took hold, and the children quickly accepted him. They were probably twins, a boy and a girl, around 13 years old. It's worth noting that the children were incredibly beautiful. The little girl, at her age, looked even prettier than some European and American celebrities. If she could maintain her current looks, she'd probably become a goddess for otakas. While shaping the dough with a rolling pin, Yukai asked the little girl, "What do you want to do? What do you want to do in the future?" "Teacher. Teacher." Yukai had considered becoming a teacher for a while, but after a few days, his mind changed. It's like that when you're young, you don't have a deep understanding of the world, and you don't know much. It's a shame she's not a star. Yukai thought to himself. The first step in making Icelandic Christmas cookies is to use a special iron wheel to roll out the dough. The forceful rolling of the iron wheel leaves rows of marks on the dough. The second step is to use a knife to weave the dough. The weaving process is somewhat complex, and everyone's approach is different, so every Christmas cookie is unique. The third step is to poke holes in the bread with a fork. These holes prevent the dough from expanding in the frying pan. Yukai didn't know this little trick before, but now that he's learned it, no wonder the dough sometimes expands when eating fried dumplings. As everyone made their Christmas cookies, they chatted about the latest gossip. Yukai's Christmas cookie featured a simple smiley face, reflecting his current mood. When everyone had finished, Grandma Greet said, "Time for snacks." She presented a large selection of treats. Grantham told Yukai that they were all handmade by Greet. They looked delicious, and Yukai, hungry all day, began to salivate. There was flatkaka, an Icelandic specialty, which looked like sliced beef from China, homemade creamy fruit salad, which, after being frozen, felt like a stretchy pizza, banana cake, and fried dough that had been previously made badly, served on the table. The Grantham family was religious, and they said a prayer before eating before digging in. Eating frozen creamy fruit salad in the Icelandic winter was actually quite pleasant. This is a country that loves ice cream, and even in winter, people set up stalls outside to sell it. During the conversation, Yukai said that he would return to China after Christmas. The child counted on his fingers, but found he couldn't figure it out, so he looked at his mother. Wendy said to the child, "It's the first of the day, and there are still 24 days until Christmas." Grandma Greet was reluctant to hear that Yukai was leaving Iceland so soon. "So soon? Stay here until winter's over." On the first day of summer, all of Iceland cheers for the sun, a scene you don't get to see for ordinary tourists. Yukai shook his head and said, "Chinese New Year is coming soon, a time when families get together. My parents would be sad if I weren't home, so I have to hurry back." Yukai had been in Iceland for over 2 months. He had used those 2 months to travel all over the country, and he had no regrets. It was also his longest trip to date. "That's a shame I only officially met you today," Yukai replied with a smile. "After we met, we're just friends. We'll always have the chance to meet again." The last dish to be served was a giant fruit pizza. The homemade pizza seemed even better than many store-bought ones. After all the delicious food he had eaten before, he actually managed to finish 2 large slices. On the way home, I thought, "I can't sleep after eating so much. Let's go for a walk." Even though there's no light in the sky right now, relying on lights from other people's windows and street lamps for illumination, it's only 5 o'clock. This time of year used to be the busiest time for tourists on the main street. Now, there are only a few people. The weather has affected many people's sense of time, and many are asleep at this hour. As a result, the main street is sparsely populated, with people hurriedly walking in windbreakers. Many of them are people who just got off work, eager to get home to enjoy the warmth. Walking down the street at night, there's no sound of birdsong or cicadas. Yukai suddenly felt like visiting Lake Toning, so he headed towards it. It was now partially frozen, and the swans and ducks weren't interested, having already lined up along the lake's edge to sleep. They live together, a swan might be next to a duck, or even another swan. He continued walking along the main street until he reached a fitness center. Feeling the warmth inside, he put his down jacket in his storage compartment. This gym was a hidden gem Yukai had discovered with the onset of winter. Iceland's peak tourist season is strange. It's not June, when the polar day arrives, nor is it winter, when the polar night arrives. Instead, it's August and September. After these 2 months, the number of tourists to Iceland begins to decline. Could it be that tourists aren't here to see the polar day? Well, anyway, when the crowds were gone, Yurkai finally had a good time exploring Reykjavik, discovering many interesting places along the way, including this gym. The owner of this gym is a kickboxer, and Yurkai occasionally gets to spar with him during his visits, learning about the differences between kickboxing and traditional boxing. The receptionist was a Spanish woman, and Yurkai asked, "Where's your boss?" "He's not here today." "What made you come here in the evening?" "I usually come in the morning. I was just passing through this time." With his sparring partner away, Yurkai went for a run and showered before leaving. The gym must be a favorite haunt for Icelandic sports enthusiasts in winter. After all, it's freezing cold outside, and any kind of exercise will be affected. Especially running. Almost no one dares to run in Reykjavik in winter. The snow on the ground, which has been trampled hard, will tell you what cruelty is. Yurkai felt that there was a reason why there were not many foreign tourists in this season. It was the snow and the ice. The snow on the ground was too slippery. You would fall after walking a few steps. The snow itself is not slippery, but when too many people step on it, the snow becomes compacted and is more dangerous than watermelon peel or banana. Walking on it feels like stepping on soap soaked in water. If you can do this without falling, you must be an old Icelander. Chapter 422 Geyser. Regarding winter swimming in Iceland, Yurkai was planning to do it, and specifically consulted Ji Qing, who had gone swimming once before. Ji Qing gave Yurkai detailed instructions on what to prepare and the safest places to swim. However, Ji Qing's husband, Andre, told Yurkai that after Ji Qing returned home, he would need to recuperate for a month after being sick before he could go back to work. This made Yurkai feel even more like Ji Qing was as happy as a dog. Yurkai made all the preparations, but still didn't go. It was truly too cold. Yurkai felt that only people who grew up in cold climates could swim in the snow and ice. Lake Torning was frozen over. People were already seen playing on the frozen surface. It was likely that in a few days, if the ice thickened a little, the lake would become a vast square. Ants who loved dancing would no longer have to worry about having nowhere to dance. Yurkai was making electronic music on his computer at home when he heard a knock on the door. Kelly was the only person Yurkai knew in Iceland who would knock like that, and it was the weekend, a day he didn't have to work. Opening the door, it was indeed him. "Yi, I heard you're going back to China in a few days." "Yeah, that's right." It was December 15th, and Yurkai was planning to go home on December 27th. The number of tourists to Iceland had decreased recently, so there was no need to worry about not being able to buy tickets. So Yurkai planned to buy his plane ticket right before he left. "You didn't even tell me about such a big deal," Kelly said with an exaggerated expression. There was still half a month left, so it was a bit early to say he was leaving now, wasn't it? Besides, Yurkai had told them long ago that he would leave Iceland after Christmas. But Yurkai knew that this was just Kelly's character. Shrugging his shoulders, Yurkai smiled, making room by the door for Kelly to enter first. "Forgive me, then. Let's go out sometime." "No, where else can we go now that's better than staying home with the heating on?" Kelly suddenly thought of a place and said, "I remember a place with delicious food. You probably haven't been there yet. I'll take you there." Kelly happily stood up from the sofa, ready to drag Yurkai out with her. "Wait. I'll change first. While you're there, call Ji Qing and the others and ask if they want to go." It was another one of those days when the sun was just rising. If they were driving at this hour, it would surely be night by the time they arrived and started heating, so they asked Ji Qing and the others to come along. It would be more lively with more people, and the drive back wouldn't be boring. After all, it was evening by then, and the atmosphere would surely drop after dark. With Ji Qing around, it certainly wouldn't be too bad. Okay, go change, go ahead." Kelly was even more anxious than Yurkai, probably thinking of the delicious food at the restaurant. His stomach growled, and he stared at Yurkai's stomach intently. "Are you hungry? Then go change." Yurkai didn't argue with the childish guy. He returned to his room and put on his newly bought Icelandic sweater. The yarn was thick, a bit like the ones his mother knitted for him when he was very little. It couldn't be worn alone as an inner layer, it had to be paired with an undergarment. He finished with a long coat and a thick woolen hat. Kelly's call was over by the time he left, so he got in Kelly's car and headed to the residential area to pick up Ji Qing. Ji Qing and Andre were also wearing black down jackets, making it look like four fat penguins gathered together, all laughing and giggling. "Where are we going today?" Ji Qing asked. She had no idea what was going on. When Kelly asked you if she could come, Ji-Qing immediately agreed, even bringing her husband along. Ji-Qing's thinking was simple: it wouldn't be easy to get a meal at Kelly's expense. This guy, though not married or in a relationship, never had any money left over each month. He spent it all on anime dolls. Such a small thing, it cost tens of thousands of yuan. The toy seller was absolutely crazy about money. And the thing was, people were still buying them. It was ridiculous. Let's go to that restaurant across from the geyser. The mutton soup there is amazing. There are fewer tourists this month, so there must be room. Oh, I know where it is. Let's go now, Kelly said. I'm already driving over. What do you think? Let's go. We can still make it in time for lunch. If it gets dark, we'll have to eat supper. The 4 people, except Yukai, were all civil servants and office workers in Iceland. They all had strict daily wake-up and rest times, with clear plans for when to wake up and when to rest. Yukai, however, was the type to let things run wild, sometimes going to bed at 7 or 8 in the morning, sometimes at 2 or 3 in the morning. It was always dark anyway, so Yukai was actually feeling a bit sleepy at this point. He'd gone to bed at 6 yesterday afternoon, but this morning he'd been up at 1 to start making the electronic music he'd been thinking about. Everyone got in the car, and Yukai sat in the passenger seat. After buckling up, he began to relax, closing his eyes and preparing for a nap. Even though they were just going out for a meal, there were definitely other activities afterward. It was impossible to drive 2 hours just for a meal. Everyone had worked a week and finally had time to hang out. Just a meal? They definitely have to go out for some music or go clubbing. Of course, Ji-Qing definitely wouldn't go clubbing. She'd protested strongly whenever anyone suggested going to a club or bar. Yukai actually thought the same thing. He'd be better off reading a book at home. The car suddenly stopped. Feeling it, Yukai opened his eyes and asked, "Are we there?" "Not yet. I've only been driving for 2 minutes, Kelly said, speechless. Ji-Qing laughed and said, "I told him to stop here. Pack some snacks in the car so we can eat while we visit the geyser. You can bring some mutton soup with you. It's so cold, it's bound to get cold soon, right?" Andre reminded him. "Yes, we'll eat in the store, but we'll still need snacks." As he spoke, he was already heading towards the supermarket, apparently intending to personally select some snacks for the car. Although he wouldn't gain weight eating himself, he still envied those who did. "I have a cheat, what do you have?" Yukai waited in the car until he fell asleep again, while Kelly browsed the international version of TikTok on his phone. 10 minutes later, Andre emerged from the supermarket carrying a large bag of snacks. "Why did you buy so much? If you can't finish it, you can just keep it and eat it later. It won't expire soon. What are you worried about?" Carrying their things into the car, Ji-Qing chuckled softly, covering his mouth as he saw Yukai still soundly asleep. Finally, he whispered to Kelly, "I'm reminded of the year I first came to Iceland. I was also confused about my sleep schedule." Kelly said nonchalantly, "I can't tell now, either." "Huh? So when did you go to bed yesterday?" "Sleep? What kind of sleep should I have? Why would I need to sleep at such a young age?" "That's a strange question. I definitely didn't sleep yesterday. I'll sleep after I get home, just in time for work tomorrow." Ji-Qing and Andre exchanged a glance, their hair standing on end. Ji-Qing quickly said, "Then why don't you sit in the back and get a good night's sleep? Let Andre drive." "Ho ha, of course I'm kidding. I slept so well last night." Kelly seemed to feel that he had tricked Ji-Qing. The smile on his face was so arrogant that Ji-Qing wanted to punch him, but he suppressed the thought because he was worried about disturbing Yukai, who was sleeping soundly in the passenger seat. HMPH. The car drove along the deserted winter highway in Iceland. For a long time, not a single car passed by. The surrounding moss was covered in snow, several inches thick. Only the frequent passing of vehicles on the road prevented the snow from accumulating on the ground. Honestly, most of the cars on this road during the day were tourists. If it weren't for these tourists, when the snow covered Iceland's roads every winter, the government would have to spend a lot of effort to keep some of the most important roads open. This is why, even though there are roads, people still prefer to take a boat to Reykjavik from the sea instead of driving or taking a bus. The sound of driving on such a road is different, and there is often a sound of ice being crushed. Kelly also drove very slowly. On such a road, not only people but also cars would slip. A place that should have taken an hour to reach took an hour and 40 minutes. However, This speed also made Ji-Qing feel safe. When they were almost at the geyser parking lot, Ji-Qing woke Yukai and said, "We're finally here." Kelly continued, "Yes, we're here this time. We're really here." He stepped out of the car, lips pursed tightly and eyes dull. His lips were straight, and his cheeks puffed slightly, making Yukai's face, as if meticulously sculpted by an ancient Greek sculptor, seem rounder. Caught off guard, a flash of light flashed before Yukai's eyes. He looked expressionlessly at Ji-Qing, then at the phone she held. "Are you secretly filming me? What for?" Yukai regained consciousness, but still had no idea why Ji-Qing was filming him. He glanced at his clothes, then pulled out his phone to check his face. There was nothing on it, but his eyes looked tired. He couldn't indulge in single-player games when he got home today. He had to go to bed early. He rolled his eyes at Ji-Qing. After all, his mind was very peculiar. He couldn't guess what Ji-Qing was thinking. Let him film secretly, he wouldn't make any money from his photos anyway. If taking selfies could make money, Yukai would take a selfie every morning, even before meals. However, Yukai has actually seen celebrities do this. When they're free, they take a selfie on their phone, then pay to view it. Each photo costs 10 yuan, and millions of people buy it instantly. If you don't consider the platform's commission, this operation has earned tens of millions of yuan, about the same as Yukai earns from writing novels in a year. It's so easy to make money from fans. Thinking of this, Yukai quickly took a photo and posted it to his fan group, typing, "Kelly treated me to what he said was the best mutton soup in the whole of Iceland, and we're already there. SP, look how much I love you guys. I sent you photos for such a small thing, and it's free, and you're not giving me a triple combo?" The fourth Harry Potter movie is about to be released. Have you bought the first three? Catch Brother Kai in the front row. Fans holding up signs emoji package. I love Yukai the most. Love 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 love. Fans holding up signs emoji package. I love Yukai the most. Love 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 love. Bought it all, and even bought 100 sets to give out in the group. Brother Yi, are you having something delicious today? Can you post on Weibo what you're eating later? When will the fourth part be released? I've been waiting for so long. The last time Yukai came to the geyser, there were a lot of tourists, and he waited for more than an hour on the road just for a parking space. Today he found a parking space directly, got out of the car and walked for 2 minutes, and Kelly announced loudly, "Here it is." I'd expected a place specializing in mutton soup, but it turned out to be a fast food restaurant. Perhaps this place, like the hot dog stand by the pier, is a well-known internet sensation, packed with tourists even at this hour. I feel like the better restaurants in Iceland are all known abroad. Seriously, can't they keep a little secret for the locals? There's no surprise there. 3 bowls of mutton soup were served first. Unlike the thick white mutton soup you often find in China, Icelandic mutton soup resembles spicy hot pot, but the similarity is only in color. The flavor is different, and it's not sticky at all. The mutton was cut into cubes the size of sugar cubes. I scooped up a spoonful and could see red carrots, also cut into small cubes the size of sugar cubes. The fat was floating on the surface, but very little, not at all greasy. In such a cold winter's day, drinking a bowl of hot mutton soup like this brought a sudden sense of happiness. They continued to order chicken wings, fries, and burgers, all fried junk food, but seeing such junk food when you're hungry is truly appetizing. Ji-Qing exclaimed, "Junk food makes me happy," and tucked into his burger with big mouthfuls. By the time they finished, it was already dark. No one had gone straight back, so Ji-Qing took the lead, wanting to show everyone the geysers at night. This place is a super popular tourist destination in Iceland, a must-see for almost every visitor. If someone from abroad visits Iceland but doesn't see the geysers, it simply means they were on a business trip and don't have time to visit and take photos. Although it was already dark, it was only 3 o'clock, so there were still quite a few people gathered around the geysers. Ji-Qing said, "Actually, the best time to see them is in the early morning hours of the polar day. It's light all day, but tourists tend to sleep at that time. If you're lucky, you'll have this magical view all to yourself." As he spoke, the geysers suddenly erupted with a loud noise, and small bubbles began to bubble from their mouths. Soon, there was a loud explosion, and a column of water shot up into the sky. Yukai couldn't quite tell how high the spring gushed, but it must have been at least 40 meters. White smoke filled the air, and the super hot spring from the underground spilled onto the ground, also emitting hot steam. For a moment, This place became a legendary paradise. I'll take a day off tomorrow to rest. I've been so tired lately. Chapter 423 Christmas Alone. When Yukai first attended the Christmas ceremony and watched the small Christmas tree in the square being lit up, he didn't really feel anything special. But every day after that, whenever he passed by the square, he'd see the tree, ablaze with its lights, forever gleaming. It felt like a small hope, like a beacon of hope, eagerly awaiting his return. Ever since the lighting ceremony, the Christmas atmosphere in Iceland has grown stronger. It's the most important holiday in Iceland, with 2.5 days of national holiday, and every household is filled with joy, much like Chinese New Year. While dumplings are popular in China, Christmas pancakes are popular in Iceland. They're the kind Yukai had made before. They're thin sheets of dough, carved with patterns, and fried until fragrant and crispy. While not as delicious as dumplings, they still have a unique flavor when shared. Sometimes, just gathering together for a meal is such a joy, whether it's pork or chive dumplings, or just the simple Icelandic fried dough. The feeling of approaching the new year is truly wonderful. It's almost time to leave Iceland. Yukai had already packed his belongings. He packed 3 boxes of gifts for people to send back home, sending them via post from the airport. The courier fee alone cost 1,400 yuan. He'd made quite a few friends in Iceland, so he didn't accept any invitations. On Christmas Day, Yukai was home alone, camera in hand, heading out into the night to see the streets of Iceland at Christmas. Iceland's wireless network signal is very spotty, especially compared to domestic networks. Even live streaming suffers from lags, frame drops, and other issues. Yukai had already experimented with this a month before arriving in Iceland, so sharing his life in Iceland would require a vlog. He'd thought it would take many episodes, but now it's almost over, and with this one still unrecorded, there are only 18 episodes left. That's already a lot. If anyone could watch from the first episode to the final 18th, they'd get to know Iceland in every possible way, from its geography to its customs. It would be like being there in person. Yukai thought, perhaps this was the greatest significance of his trip to Iceland, to let those who couldn't make it know that such a place existed. A place half glacier, half fire. The streets were festooned with colorful lights. The tiny lights in the windows were no longer enough to satisfy Icelanders' Christmas spirit, so they filled the streets with Christmas lights. On the walls of the art gallery, 16 Santa Claus figures were projected, each a unique animation, a truly fascinating sight. Walking to the square, a gigantic cat-shaped lantern appeared. Standing 2 meters tall, it replicated the patterns of a cat, with black lines outlining its eyes and teeth. It bared its teeth and glared at every Icelander who passed by. Yukai spoke to the camera, "Do you see this giant cat? Its Icelandic name is Jólakötturinn, which means Christmas cat. If you don't wear new clothes at Christmas, it will eat you up." Suddenly, the sight of the neon beast made him feel like he was seeing something. It's rare to find people out late at night in Europe, but Iceland, in the polar night, might be the only place like that. Streetlights illuminated the path ahead. Yukai walked along the street, camera in one hand, listening to Christmas carols drifting from nowhere. He reached his usual hot dog stand and, as expected, there was a long line. The hot dogs at this place are really good. If you come to Iceland, I recommend you try it. The lamb filling is a must. If you have extra time, I also recommend the lamb soup at the fast food restaurant across from the geyser. The delicious flavor will redefine the meaning of lamb. He chattered all the way, chewing on a hot dog as he reached the place where he had met Kelly. Further ahead was the ocean. The freezing weather made the sidewalk slippery, so he had to walk on the grass beside the sidewalk. The streetlights cast long shadows. The natural hot springs by the sea steamed, smelling like rotten eggs. He walked forward, heading towards the lighthouse. The lighthouse was originally located on an island with no bridge, so reaching it was more of a matter of luck. Yukai was lucky today. The tide was low, revealing a patch of land between the two areas. The ground was covered with seaweed, broken shells, and countless small white pebbles. He was alone, carrying a tripod and camera. He passed a lone jogger on the way. They exchanged greetings, and Yukai continued to stare blankly at the lighthouse. The runner circled the area and then headed back to Iceland. It was time for Yukai to get moving. He'd go home, edit the video, and prepare for a day of conversation with friends tomorrow. The day after tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, he'd buy tickets to Ireland and then transfer to the UK before returning to China. All in all, Yukai had been in Iceland for almost 3 months. That wasn't enough time to completely transform him into an Icelandic person, but if Yukai wanted to pretend to be someone who grew up in Iceland, it would be easy. It was easy. All it took was optimism, enthusiasm, and a belief in elves. The next night, many of his friends from Reykjavik came to Yukai's house. Stephanie, the author of the Twilight series, Old Hawk, who lived in the same town as the president and had come with his 2 granddaughters, Jack, a tour guide by profession but also a part-time farmer, Ji-Kwing and Kelly, who worked at the tourism bureau, neighbors who had raised several children, and of course, many others who couldn't make it, but whom Yukai still remembered vividly. Like the captain he met in the Arctic, the wealthy European Justy, and Hillary, who came to the Arctic for a university project. Ji-Kwing helped decorate the small home with extraordinary warmth. After all, Yukai certainly wouldn't have known how to decorate his own home, even with his excellent taste and reputation as a renowned photographer. The adults drank beer, and the children enjoyed a local Icelandic drink. Beer was once banned in Iceland, but beer is a very important beverage in Nordic countries. So, what could they do? They came up with a new drink. It tasted like Fanta mixed with locally produced Icelandic kvass, sweet, not too alcoholic, and strangely charming. It was still late outside the window. Yukai didn't know when he fell asleep, he only remembered everyone's blessings. I wish my friend Dre all the best after leaving Iceland. If you encounter difficulties that are difficult to overcome, please remember that Iceland will always be your retreat in life. The article about Iceland comes to an end here. This article is very long. I like this place very much, so I want to show everything about Iceland. Chapter 424 Return Home. By the time the new vlog was uploaded online, Yukai had already flown back to China. While in Ireland, Yukai and Saoirse had agreed that she would come to China during the Lunar New Year, and Yukai would take her to visit his parents to avoid his mother's constant nagging about finding a girlfriend. Upon getting off the plane, the familiar sounds of home filled the air. On September 16th, he packed his bags and headed for Iceland. By the time he returned to his homeland, it was already January. Having spent a few days in Ireland, he had missed New Year's Day. It's getting cold in China too, Yukai said, wearing a chunky Icelandic sweater. To the unfamiliar, it would look no different from a hand-knit sweater in China. Over a decade ago, it would have been considered old-fashioned, but now the market price is rising. With the proliferation of assembly line goods, handmade items naturally become more expensive. So much of his belongings had been shipped back to China via courier, so Yukai's departure was relaxed, with just a backpack and a suitcase, much like when he arrived in Iceland. Hey! A surprised voice appeared outside the airport. After Sun Xiang shouted this, he looked around panically, and when he found that no one was paying attention to this side, he breathed a sigh of relief, rushed to Yukai and gave him a hug. Haha, I haven't seen you for several months. You seem to have grown taller again. Yukai pushed him away and said, how can I grow so fast? I just changed into a new pair of shoes, so I look taller than before. Where's your girlfriend? Did you come alone? At school. It's not vacation yet. Sun Xiang looked at Yukai carefully and sighed. I always feel that you have changed a lot in 3 months. You are more handsome and wider than before. It's the polar night in Iceland. I haven't been exposed to the sun for a few days in the whole December. It's normal to become wider. Sun Xiang laughed a few times and said, the weather is so cold. Do you miss the hot pot in our chundu? Let's go for a walk and eat skewers. But it's just the 2 of us. So who has classes in the evening? Yukai used to have few friends, and Sun Xiang was about the same. After graduation, I lost contact with my classmates. I haven't been to any reunions in the past 2 years, only occasionally asserting my presence, or perhaps my superiority, in the class group chat. Yukai, in particular, no longer dared to speak in the group chat. Shudashya. A simple private room, a vibrant red setting. Cold beer, yogurt, and tripe and blood curd were all ordered. Bubbles gradually rose from the red pot, the aroma of chili filling the room before being quickly absorbed by the air conditioning, leaving only a lingering fragrance. I heard this place is very popular abroad. Have you seen any? Shudashya. There are quite a few. Yukai didn't see any hot pot restaurants in Iceland, but there were branches of Shudashya in Ireland, the UK, and the US. The flavors were certainly different from those in Chengdu, with some localization. For example, hot pot restaurants in London don't use so many fresh chilies. The spiciness is there, Of course, but the ingredients are often different from those in China. So if you're used to hot pot in China, it might not be satisfying abroad. How could the British understand the delightful, hearty bites of hot pot with chopsticks? Sun Shuang picked up some bean curd, dipped it in the oil dish, and brought it to his mouth, taking a sip of beer. If you ask me, you've changed a lot in the past 2 years. I have to work a little harder, otherwise the old man will always say that you are good here and there, as if you are his real son. My dad will not be happy if you say that, Ye Kai said jokingly. Sun Shuang's father had always wanted Ye Kai to work in his company, but Ye Kai just didn't go when he graduated. He couldn't save face and felt that if he went to work in Sun Shuang's company, he would definitely feel uncomfortable when he saw Sun Shuang in the future. Now it seems to be right. If Ye Kai really worked for their family, how could Ye Kai and Sun Shuang have the relationship they have now? Ye Kai would probably have become like Sun Shuang's other friends, and at most they would no longer nod to each other when they met. Sun Shuang continued, I mean, never mind. I can't really put it into words. Everything's good. Your wish has come true. You've made money and are free. It's great. Don't envy me. You know, there are so many people who envy you. Regardless of being the richest man, Sun Shuang's family's assets were at least stable. Real estate isn't like internet finance, where things can collapse at any moment. Even if a broken ship is still a tad bit strong, even if these properties were sold at rock-bottom prices, they'd still make a lot of money. The two of them didn't eat for long. It took them just over an hour to finish their order, and the bill was only around 200 yuan. Breakfast in Iceland could cost 50 or 60 days, and now that was a distant memory. Ye Kai had actually brought gifts for Sun Shuang and Zhou Sihu, but they were probably still somewhere out at sea, and there was no telling when they would arrive back home. After dinner, Sun Shuang drove Ye Kai home. As soon as he opened the door upstairs, a musty smell filled the room. He quickly opened all the windows to air it out and found the air freshener he'd bought a few months ago. He sprayed a little here and there in the room, but the unpleasant smell still tried to drive Ye Kai out. So Ye Kai followed his lead, put on his coat, and walked out, intending to wait a few hours for the smell to dissipate before returning. This house was definitely uninhabitable, at least not for a peaceful sleep. It was torture. After living away from home for so many months, Ye Kai had longed for his soft bed at home. Now, being forced out, he felt like a homeless person, with no home to return to. It was pure torture. Chengdu's nighttime bustle couldn't compare to that place in Iceland. Just outside the complex was a commercial street. While there weren't any bars or nightclubs, they closed late. In another 2 hours, as soon as those shops closed, many snack vendors would arrive with their carts. Who said this place was bustling? Across the street lay Chengdu's Jinjiang River, its stone bridge ablaze with lights, a scene every bit as majestic as it was during the day, a scene worth wasting your film lens on. This riverside street was considerably more chaotic than the commercial street outside the complex. There are often drunk people coming out of the bars nearby. The crime rate was quite high a few years ago, but later they installed sky eye surveillance in this area, and it has become a little more harmonious. The river breeze blew, and the water surface was rippling. Although there was a bit of chill, it was completely blocked by the down jacket. It was not like the wind in Iceland, which blew from all directions and never stopped for a moment. The weather has also improved. At least in Chengdu, the weather forecast will definitely not be wrong within 3 days, unlike Iceland, where people have to rely on themselves to identify the weather. Suddenly, I was standing by the river, with an old neighborhood behind me. I took a breath of the cold air with the river breeze, and listened to a few words with a faint old Chengdu accent coming from the roadside tea house. Chapter 425 Congratulations in advance. The next day, I groggily climbed out of bed. I thought I was in Iceland when I landed, but my foot landed on nothing. The bed here is 20 centimeters taller than the one in Iceland, and those 20 centimeters determine its softness. A bed that makes you sink completely into it is no joke. I turned off the air conditioner and opened the window to let in the cool air. I wanted to go shopping, but I was having trouble deciding what to wear. Chengdu's damp and cold weather made everything feel underwhelming. It's snowing heavily in Iceland right now, and snow doesn't melt immediately when it lands on clothes, so even if you're building snowmen or rolling around in the snow, your clothes stay dry. Chengdu also snows, but it usually just puddle on your hands or body. I checked the weather, sunny. I threw away the thick down jacket I brought back from Iceland and dug into my closet for a faux fur coat I bought last year. Layered with a gray turtleneck sweater, it's a warm yet comfortable combination. Taking the elevator downstairs, the morning air in the neighborhood was filled with a fresh scent of grass. A glance revealed that the property management was pushing a machine to trim the overgrown weeds. With a Lunar New Year approaching, the streets were filled with festive decorations. Some old shops would hang red lanterns, and walking along the old street, one could see couplets and blessing characters plastered on wooden doors. The owner of the restaurant he frequented had skillfully pasted freshly cut paper cuts on both walls. As Yukai entered, the owner immediately recognized him and called out, "You haven't been here in a while? Have you been on a business trip?" The shop was run by an elderly couple. They didn't usually use the internet, and their phones were old-fashioned. They weren't particularly interested in current celebrities. To them, they were more like the Andy Lau and Wei Kan Chow era. Besides the paper cuts, there was also a widget payment code on the wall. It belonged to their daughter. Business was good. Although Yukai hadn't asked, he guessed the daughter received at least 3,000 yuan a month. He wondered if it was pocket money from the couple. However, it's also possible that the daughter collected the money and resent it to the elderly couple every once in a while. It was late, and aside from late risers like Yukai, no one would come to the shop for breakfast at this time, so there were only 4 customers. Yukai said, "Well, I went abroad. 2 fried dough sticks and 3 yaoxiao, fried dough sticks." The proprietress placed the fried dough sticks and yaoxiao on a plate for Yukai. The proprietress also placed a porcelain bowl filled with sugar, 2 spoonfuls of it already in front of Yukai. Then he lifted a large kettle and poured soy milk into the bowl. The boiling soy milk quickly dissolved the sugar, and the yaoxiao and fried dough sticks were served. Fried dough sticks are essentially flatbreads with a red bean filling. Yukai loved the red bean filling in the fried dough sticks. If it weren't so greasy, he would have been full on just that. Yaoxiao, fried dough sticks, are sold throughout China, but this type of fried dough sticks may be found in some places but not others. This snack is universal, just like fried dough sticks, but it depends on the chef's skill. Whether it tastes good depends entirely on how well the filling is prepared. The boss who brought Yukai the fried dough sticks was surprised, wiped his hand on his apron, and said, "Going abroad? Oh, that's amazing. It must be quite hot abroad right now, right? I heard the seasons are opposite to ours." It depends on the country. Most countries have the same seasons as ours. If he wanted to explain in detail, he would have to carefully explain the southern and northern hemispheres, and then explain the differences between the northern and southern hemispheres. It's not something that can be explained in just a few words. So Yukai chose to simplify his answer. After all, the destinations Chinese people often visit are in Europe and parts of Asia, where the seasons are the same as China's. It's winter in China right now, and it's snowing in most of Europe. Oh, so? The boss asked casually. Seeing that Yukai had already started eating, he slowly went to clear the table. This shop mainly serves breakfast, and most people order takeout. If not, with the boss's slow pace, countless people would have left early. Yaoxiao are very crispy, but if you prefer not to eat them that way, you can also put them in a bowl of soy milk. The phone rang. He thought it was Sun Shuang, but when he picked it up, he realized it was Joe Kevin from the publishing house. "Good morning, Editor Joe." "Good morning, haha. I'm calling because last quarter's royalties have been transferred. Congratulations in advance on being the highest paid author last year. Just luck." Yukai hadn't anticipated the explosive popularity of Harry Potter, nor had he anticipated the high royalties for Nirvana in Fire. Perhaps Nirvana in Fire wasn't the highest paid IP in 2020, but Yukai didn't co-author this novel. He held the film and television rights firmly in his hands, thus reaping the highest returns. If he had continued writing on the platform, he would have been lucky to earn 10 million out of nearly 100 million in royalties. 1 or 2 wins can be considered good luck, but Mr. Yi, this isn't the first year your book has topped the bestseller list. Although the awards haven't been announced yet, I'll give you a heads up, the 2020 bestseller will likely be Harry Potter. Joe Kevin still felt he was being too conservative. In the second half of last year, Yukai published 3 Harry Potter books, with combined global sales exceeding tens of millions. Was there any other book in the world that dominated last year? None. So this award was practically a foregone conclusion. It all depended on whether Yukai attended the ceremony. I see. Thank you, Editor-in-Chief Joe, and your publishing house. I'll treat you to a good time in Chengdu sometime. Haha, that's fine. You're the pillar of our publishing house, and we should be the ones to invite you. After hanging up the phone, Yukai thought about finding an assistant. He was a man who shied away from trouble and rarely dealt with business deals, sometimes even forgetting about them altogether. For example, Yukai had long wanted to sell the film and television rights to Harry Potter. But until he met Stephanie in Iceland, he hadn't made any effort to search for potential film and television companies on Weibo or in his email. In order not to change his mobile phone number, Yukai carried around a number that had been exposed long ago, and just set a setting to refuse unknown calls. Until now, he can still receive money from strangers on Alipay every day. On average, it has been a few hundred yuan every day in the past few months. When Yukai walked out of the breakfast shop, he thought about contacting Macmillan of Warner. This is the most important thing in the near future. After all, the sooner the copyright is sold, the sooner Harry Potter can be seen on the big screen. I really need to find an assistant. I wanted to update more yesterday, but I was dragged out for a drink and woke up in the morning. My head hurts so much. I will update at least 4 times today, and there will be more this month. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.